I don't know if he's behind it.
Hmm.
I think he was like, hey, I think, it's like his communication style is very gangster. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, if you decide to do this thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
might be all right. You want to do this
Yeah.
thing, you stop there.
Hmm.
I'm not saying you should do that because that might be illegal.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I wouldn't say you should do that. But if you want to go down there on January 6th, we're having a big pizza party.
Right.
And, but in the end, it was like, I was so focused on the pain because I was trying to avoid it that I wouldn't look at it. And then when I actually looked at it and investigated what is giving me pain, that in the grand scheme of things is very tiny.
Okay.
Is a tiny little sensorial blip, of like everything that was going on. And
Right.
like if you actually do sit like for a 10-day meditation, this is the new thing. I mean, and I watch it. I'm just like, what's that new girl? She's blonde, and her whole thing is to get up and do a dance. And then at a certain point, she turns her butt around and she shakes it a certain way, and everyone goes like, yeah, she's doing the thing. And it's like that took no frick. She like that's her thing. Like she's on stage and she's kind of like, like in maybe a 7.5 or an 8. She's a little.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if she's even like a really good singer or not.
Hello there. I'm so grateful that you have given up some of your time to check out this week's episode of the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast. You have just brought me a little piece of happiness. For this episode, I had the privilege of reconnecting with someone I haven't seen in over 25 years, and it was a lot of fun. Before getting to the discussion, I just want to remind you to please do all the subscribing and leaving of reviews, whether on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. This really helps to spread the word about the show. And speaking of that, if you could also share this episode, or just this podcast in general, with everyone that you know, I would greatly appreciate it. And lastly, as you might have heard, I love getting feedback from anyone and everyone, so please don't hesitate to shoot me an email at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. Let me know what you like about the show, don't like about the show, or really whatever you would like to share with me. Thanks. My guest this week is Mike Kelly. From elementary school and on into junior high and high school, one of my best friends was a kid named John. Mike is John's older brother, and like I mentioned before, I hadn't seen or talked with him in over 25 years. Mike has done all kinds of cool stuff since then, like being an actor and a bartender. He is currently living in Hawaii, going to nursing school, and working in the Manta dive industry. If you're like me, you probably have no idea what that is, but you'll find out as you listen. One more thing. As often happens when I record these episodes across states and through a computer, it takes a little time to get the audio right. So as you first start listening, you will hear that Mike's audio is a little wonky in parts. But don't worry, we fixed the problem, I promise. You just need to endure until around the 20-minute mark or so. Anyway, I had a blast hanging out with Mike for this episode, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. So how's it going, man? Dang, I was trying to think of last time I saw you was probably high school.
Yeah, I remember me and John would cruise over to your house every once in a while.
Yeah, on Drake.
Yeah, and Drake, we lived on Majestic.
Yeah.
On the corner. Yeah. You still living over in Santa Maria then, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're still on, well, we're not there, but I mean, we're over off of, well, I don't know if you're even familiar with the area anymore. How long you been out at Santa Maria? Long time?
The last time I moved out in, I went to San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
In 1996, a couple years after high school.
Okay.
And then I moved to the Bay Area. I went to school there for from 2000. Yeah, it was 2001. I remember because that fall was the fall that the trade center got whacked.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah. So
wow,
that was 2001. And then lived in the Bay Area for 15 years, a little couple stints going to Arizona. And then been in Hawaii here since 2016.
Okay. Were you in Arizona the same time? That's where John lives, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that why you were over there? Or you guys kind of living in the same area?
Yeah, it was one of those times like it was 2008 originally. That was like a short, like, I'd always have to like, but that was like 2008 restaurant I got, like, just got laid off, went
Oh,
on
okay.
unemployment. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go lived it, lived in mom's spare bedroom for like, a few months. And then like,
Nice.
all right, I went back to the Bay Area.
Okay. And was your mom in Arizona?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
John's actually bought a condo for her.
Okay.
And she lives in that.
Okay. Dude, I haven't talked to John in forever either. I know he lives in North Arizona and he's married. He's got kids. That's all I that's all I
Yeah.
know.
He's like, he's like, it's like he doesn't even claim being Californian anymore.
Oh yeah, well, I don't blame him there.
Yeah, he's like complaining about all these Californians moving to Phoenix,
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
COVID time, and I'm like, bro, you Californian? He's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. He's like, how dare you? Yeah, it was like that great migration, man. They started going to Idaho and then Idaho was getting too full and we started going to Arizona. We were looking in Tennessee. A bunch of our friends moved to Tennessee, just for
Uh-huh.
a multitude of different reasons. But yeah, for whatever reason, I'm still here. I don't know. For now, anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Could
Are
be
you? Are
worse.
you? Is it like because the politics that you want to leave, or is it because of the
Yeah, that's
cost
part
of
of it.
everything?
Yeah, that was part of it was that and just I guess it's still politics really, but like financially looking in somewhere like Tennessee where we could buy a house and for a lot cheaper and
Yeah,
I mean you could. I mean again, all these places where the Californians are going to, it's like those prices are skyrocketing there too because of all the
yeah.
influx.
I call it Californication.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, but I don't know. It's kind of on the back burner for now. We'll see where it goes. I mean, even politically, it seems like the tides are shifting a lot in a lot of different ways. So we'll see.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think people are becoming aware how much of a victim you are to like I don't know, just to that particular ideology where it's just not serving,
hmm
you know,
right?
it's not serving anyone to have like, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be serving someone, or it wouldn't be happening.
Well,
It's
yeah.
serving the wrong people. That's probably what's going on. But um, all right, well, cool, man. So real quick, there's three things I ask right off the bat, and these are like just short answers that I'm going to let you expound on as we go through.
Uh-huh.
But it's just like just to kind of get a feel. So like the first one is what's your favorite genre of music? If you had to pick just one.
Um, I don't know. I don't. That's always a tough one. I knew this was coming up. Like, like growing up, I wasn't like plugged in to like what everyone else was doing.
hmm
We grew up. My dad retired from the Air Force. We lived in the San Ynez Valley in a trailer,
hmm
and had like an antenna for the TV and got like three stations maybe. And
Nice.
and so I grew up on like these random like I think at one point. Sorry.
It's all right, no problem. I saw him laying back there. I was like, "Hey, it looks like a dog back there."
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
Pepper. She's got a good bark. It's all
Yeah.
bark, no bite. I grew up with my dad had this like tape set of like music of the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, you
Okay.
know? And
All
so I
right.
just remember like listening to that over and over again, like on cassette tape, like, you know, what's
Yeah.
that one song? Our Town and
Oh yeah, yeah.
downtown, the lights are much brighter there. It's over and over and over again. And so I
Yeah.
wasn't really like I don't think I grew up in this way where I was like connected to like John kind of a little more he's younger.
Yeah.
And maybe because like, I don't know, I was always kind of a dork and not really super social and sociable and like what are people listening to? Like I never listened to punk.
Okay.
Like it always was like a little maybe I'm just old I've always had old man ears.
Right.
But I just like it's a little too why are
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
angry?
But like, what about like
Uh,
now though? Like as an adult, is there a certain like genre that you tend to gravitate towards more than others, or do you still not really listen to a lot of music?
I listen to right now a lot of Steely Dan. and
Hmm. Hmm.
jazz when I'm in the mood. I go through little phases, and then I'll buy like right now I'm like I have like a nice little system, and I'll buy like I've got into CDs, like go to the thrift store and buying CDs.
Ah, see, I do that too. I thought I was the
Yeah,
only one. Yeah,
yeah, no,
I
they're
have a
like
huge
cheap
one.
now. Like records are all played out, right? There's like
Right.
that someone's gonna take that out, or people understand they have a value. So all that's left is like Engelbert Humperdinck records, and you
Yeah,
know,
so the thing now with the kids do, like my daughter did this. She had me take her to the thrift store so she could buy records not to listen to, but just to hang on her wall. Because
yeah, yeah.
it's like a
No, that's
fashion
a
thing, and it's like you don't even know who these singers are. She's like, it doesn't matter. I
It
was like,
doesn't
okay,
matter, yeah. And
yeah,
also, like, when you had the record, it was this size that was like, wow, you could put art on there.
yeah,
And you had to, the design was like something that, was like, it was a visual, right? It was big enough to be like a little portrait,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
right,
So, and then,
okay,
and it's like, it's analog, just like the touching it and the
yeah,
probably the little fuzz it gets from being old and,
right,
you
right.
know,
So. All right, and the second question, and again, you don't have to expound on this right now. We'll get into this in a little
oh,
bit.
okay, okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's just politically, do you lean left or right? If you had to jump on one side of that fence, where would you land right now?
Um, I lean, I think fairly in the middle, but I've
Okay.
got headed more right.
Mm,
And so like I went to school, I was in the Bay Area theater. I got a theater degree
okay.
and I was in San Francisco. And it's almost like, we all like are reflective of it's hard. It's just like, oh, what's everyone else doing?
Oh
You kind of
yeah,
bounce those ideas off.
yeah, yeah,
But like I don't know if it was pre-COVID, but I had this realization at some point that's like, especially with social media, like everyone's like in their own echo chamber,
hmm hmm
of like,
yeah,
and no one talks to the neighbors, and you're either like you're in an echo chamber where you're like everyone's just self-stroking each other's own ideas, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and or you're on Twitter X like rampaging at people,
Right,
and no
yeah,
one's like going there. You're face to face with like your neighbor, and you're like, "Oh, you think that? Oh, okay." You're gonna be less likely to like
right, yeah,
you're the reason that everything is bad in the world because of your mentality. And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's definitely people who like.
Well, and
So
it's easier
I'm done with that.
it's easier to do that on online because you can kind of hide behind your username and you know what I mean? Like there's, like you
Yeah.
said,
No,
face to
exactly.
face, very rarely will you go at somebody like that face to face, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they're out there, they do it, I see it, but it's not very often. All right, so you're pretty middle, leaning to the right.
I think do whatever you want. Do whatever you want to do. Don't hurt anybody,
Yeah,
and then expect the same of. I think that's what part of being American is like to like just say, hey, we're here. We're
yeah,
gonna.
yeah,
We just want to like have a have a job in a house
yeah,
and
right. That's the
yeah, go worship the
American
way you
dream,
worship.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, so then the last one would be, in one word, describe your spiritual beliefs. That's kind of a harder one.
One word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One word
I'm
for
gonna use
now,
a
like I said.
hyphen. I'm gonna use a hyphen.
Hmm.
Um, what is it? What's the word? What's the term? It's empirical Buddhism.
Okay. All right. Empirical
But
Buddhism.
not that I've thought about it really. But like lately,
Yeah.
like lately, you
Okay.
know.
Okay. Cool, man. The first thing I like to do though is kind of, I got a little bit of background on you, but kind of just a little more detail on that. So just kind of start with when you left here. You said you started college in San Luis, and
Yeah,
then
I mean,
okay,
I went to Hancock for a couple semesters,
okay.
and then I don't know if you knew Josh Beaumont and Stephanie and Tori Yang,
Oh, I remember
those
that
guys.
name. I remember Tori
The
Yang. Yeah.
Yangs, Tori Yang.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's younger, so she might have been.
Hmm.
I think you guys are like a couple years. You're the same year as John, yeah?
Yeah, I graduated in '96.
96. Okay, yeah. So she might have been around then. And then, so they had a house in San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
And then we moved out over there. God, it was like, it was so, I actually went and my stepmother passed and we drove through there. And
Oh,
I came, she passed last year.
Alice
And
did? You talking about
Alice did.
Alice?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
crazy. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
It was a long drawn out thing. It was some Lewy body dementia.
Oh, no.
So it's like one of those kind of like
Yeah.
deteriorating. And my dad was caretaking for her basically for the
Okay.
long period of it. And
Yeah.
but I came down. I just drove through, got a rental, just kind of drove around like the old haunts. San Luis. It's so funny. Like everything's so damn different.
Oh, yeah.
Like so when I left, like kind of the Central Coast, and I don't know, just the way I've run my life, I haven't gone back and forth a lot, and I haven't really kept in touch with people, except for maybe some of the core guys maybe on the football team
Hmm.
that I was friends with, and it's like San Luis is like dang, like so I live like 4 blocks up from like downtown, like in a
Oh,
little,
nice.
and
Party
yeah,
time.
I know now, yeah, that was totally party time. We like took a garage, we added a bedroom by like taking the garage and putting a loft in it, and like
Mm,
total college style.
nice.
And then I drove through there, and then like Orchid's all like it's got the whole thing where Elmer's was, it was just Elmer's, you
Hmm.
know. And now
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there's like wine bar and a little like, yeah. It's all a lot of like money has come in, and
Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to rebuild that whole area to make it look like almost to look like a kind of downtown slow,
Mm,
but it's not big enough. Like my wife and I ate at Kay's Country Kitchen just yesterday, and
yeah.
even then I was like, I haven't been over there in just a couple months, and there was already a whole bunch of new stuff that was going in. I was like, man, there's all this stuff going in over here. It's like if they had more room, but they just kind of don't. I mean, Old Orchard's not very big.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
3 blocks or something.
um, all right, so from San Luis, then you head up towards the Bay Area, and you said this is for a theater to be a theater major. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, when
Interesting.
I was at Cuesta, but I was living in San Luis,
Okay.
and I was like, you know, I've been like, I was like a marine biology major, and then I think I was like, okay, I'm an anthropology major. I did that for a long time, just kind of bouncing between like,
Oh yeah.
like just doing that in junior college. And then
Yeah.
I took a theater class uh, from advice of a friend,
Okay.
like an older friend. I think he could tell I had some like unexpressed things, and
Hmm.
I wanted, and it's like maybe it'd be good for me to like do. And then of course, like, I was like, when they say that you caught the bug or
Mm.
something. I
Yeah.
acted it. I did a couple shows in there, and then
Okay.
I transferred
So you were on
to
the acting side of it, not the behind the scenes stuff as much.
well, in San Francisco State you have to do all of it,
Okay. Mm.
so I've done, it's fun building sets and doing props and like the whole thing with lighting. I actually like took a stage design course, and then like the the teacher was like, you should, you know which would have been a better bet, like financially, in terms of like career wise, like doing the technical side of it is much more
Right. Sure.
you're much more reliably employed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also like there's like this, at a certain point, I have to admit this now, it's like I don't have the psychological equipment to do the whole life of being the auditioning actor.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's so for me, it felt disempowering,
Okay.
and just, but then they're all, I think some are really like good about it, compartmentalizing it than others, but just the way I'm constructed, it wasn't healthy. It
Yeah.
wasn't healthy.
Is that now? Why is that? Is that because like, would you have a hard time not getting parts? Was that like devastating?
It's not that. It's devastating. And you go and you're like, I should have got, it's all just narcissism, and
Hmm.
it's hard to like, and then – yeah, like the way theater, like the way modern stuff is like constructed, it's all like, well, it's like, and that's the thing too, you gotta get into it. Like the whole identity politics thing is shifted into the theater world.
Oh
So they're
yeah.
gonna do like like, okay, we gotta have this representation or this representation, or sometimes you'll do one like it's fine, like Asian American Theater Company will do one. And we're gonna do an all Asian like Cymbeline, like
Hmm.
some Shakespeare, or we're gonna do um uh I personally watch like like a lot of the females would start going short haircuts and then kind of like you start playing, like one actress, I'm not gonna like it's not gonna matter, but she was like she keeps posting, it's like as a handicapped actress because she was blind, legally blind,
Oh
even though
yeah.
I've never seen her wear glasses. Like, so just, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna put myself in the compartment of like the legally blind actress, and I'm gonna get those roles,
Yeah.
or the legally
Yeah.
blind white redheaded actress, you know. And honestly, like when I went to theater school, there's a guy named Brian Rivera, and he was
Mhm.
like a big Filipino guy, my
Okay.
size. I think he has that equipment. He'd always very smart. He'd show up to every show and then wait and say hi to everybody and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, great to see your show. Like he did a great, like, he wasn't schmoozy. He wasn't schmoozy, but he was good at doing that angle of it.
Okay.
And you know,
Man. Did you ever
but
do any
he was
like
like, but he
big
was
things? Did you ever have any like big roles on any
I
big?
was no, what I started doing was like doing some understudying for Berkeley Rep for some of the for like and ACT. Did a
Hmm.
couple Berkeley Rep shows. Um And then you start doing your like, you get your now you're like in a equity house and you start getting equity hours and then you build up so many equity hours and you can go into actors equity. But if you do it all through understudying, you kind of screw yourself because like now all you can do is if you become that people make that mistake, right? Like now
Yeah.
you're an equity actor and you can only take equity shows, but you're like, you really haven't really, main staged anything.
Right.
What happens is like, what my plan was is actually to go to LA or New York. And I was honestly like trying to move to LA,
Okay.
before things got derailed. I end up in Hawaii, which
Okay.
I'm thankful for. Yeah.
So when things got derailed, like what happened there? Like why?
I was, so it's kind of like I'm moving out of the Bay Area. And then I was gonna go to Phoenix and help my sister out with some stuff. She has her own business and like,
Is she in Arizona too?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, trip
yeah.
out.
Yeah, everyone's immigrated out there. My dad actually just refinanced his house
Okay.
and bought a
Majestic?
house and yeah, Majestic,
Okay.
and then bought a house in Arizona so it'd be closer to the grandkids.
Oh,
But he's
nice.
still keeping the place on Majestic. It ends
Yeah.
up like with the whole like what do you call that when they tax you on the
Oh, the
capital
property.
gains tax?
Oh, capital
Yeah, the
gains. Yeah,
capital
yeah.
gains tax is better. He doesn't sell it and we just inherit it
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So is he renting it
um,
out?
that's the plan. I don't know.
Okay.
For those that don't know much about like Ryan probably knows, but like my dad is an nth degree hoarder
Yeah.
and he can't get rid of his stuff, he can't get the place clean like to the point where I'm like, yeah, how are you gonna rent it if it's like, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah. So you go
Well,
like,
I think it's kind of cool. Like I drive by it, dude, and it's like I mean I haven't been over there in a while, but whenever I
yeah.
drive by there, it looks like you can't even really see the house. It's like a jungle. Like and it almost looks
It
like some
is.
like it's so cool. I was like, dude, that's really cool. And it's weird because I remember hanging out
It's like,
there as a kid, but it's like it's so weird looking now, you know?
yeah.
It's
And it's
awesome.
definitely like out of the whole like suburban kind of lawn clipped lawn kind of version of things over there. It's like, oh,
Right.
there's a that
Yeah.
fucker.
Yeah. And what's funny is I deliver pizzas a couple nights a week for extra money. And
Yeah.
one time I took a delivery and it was there.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm walking up, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is like this is the old Kelly house right here, dude. I haven't been here in
Yeah.
forever. And I've seen your dad's come. I work at the library too. Your dad's come in the library. I haven't seen him in a few years, but he used to come in maybe once a month, and I would talk to him in there. We'd talk for a little bit, and I was assuming that was your dad ordered pizza, but then like this other couple came out and they got it, and I was like, who the heck is that? So I don't know if it was like renters or what it
Just
was,
during
but
COVID.
no, it was after COVID.
Okay,
So
okay.
this would have been probably 2023, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe the beginning of 2024.
I mean, I don't know. Do you remember like my stepsisters at all?
Oh
Or having like
yeah,
lunch in
yeah.
there?
In fact,
Could have been them.
Melissa has come into the library too. I've seen her. She's coming in there. I've talked to her in
Yeah,
there. I
yeah.
forgot what was
Melanie.
Melanie.
Might have
Yeah.
been Melanie, but they were like living there like in that kind of time frame.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen
So could have
Melanie
been
in
Melanie.
forever. So,
Yeah.
mm. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of cool to kind of see. I was like, oh man. So anyway, so your dad's keeping that place going, and he's out in Arizona. Everybody's out in Arizona. Your
Yeah,
sister's
the
out there
plan is
too.
to rent it. I don't think he can like afford not to for too
Okay,
long.
but he
But
doesn't
he's like
want to live
keeping
here
the
anymore. He wants to live in Arizona
well,
permanently.
yeah, he's got a girlfriend now who lives
Oh,
in
okay,
Reading. So
nice.
like, after a certain amount of time and it was appropriate, he went on the old people dating websites and, and he got a lot of action, he got
hmm
he got a lot of hits
Yeah, ladies' man.
and yeah, yeah, I mean, and so he was like, I'm going to be in Phoenix and I'm going to be in Reading because I have our sister lives in Reading,
Like
another
Redding,
sister, our half sister.
Redding,
Yeah,
California.
Redding, California.
Okay.
And then he started dating this lady in Redding, California.
Mm.
And now like you remember how we had the in-law unit in the back in the
Yeah.
basement?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we had the clubhouse and
Oh, dude, a lot of fun, a lot of memories back there, man. That was awesome times.
and that's now he's gonna keep that place for them as like their halfway point
Okay.
to
Interesting.
rendezvous and they can get out of the heat of
Oh,
because Reading's hot
yeah.
and Phoenix is hot.
So's Phoenix. Yeah, it's nasty.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So,
All right.
but so I don't think anyone's living in the main house right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of cut you off, but you were talking about how you got to Hawaii, and it had to do with you were helping your sister in
Yeah, and
Phoenix.
then like it became like a long drawn out thing. And it's like some stuff I don't feel comfortable talking about,
Oh yeah, no
but
problem.
and but what it led to is just one of those. It's just like a lot of like like family oriented drama, like
Yeah.
for 6 months,
Okay.
and then it kind of like came to an end.
hmm
And one of my old friends from the restaurant world in the Bay Area, he when I used to work at this like organic vegan cafe called Cafe Gratitude. I don't know.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, yeah. It was like it was just a great place because I learned how to actually eat like,
Healthy.
whole foods. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
healthy foods. Like, oh
Yeah.
wait, yeah, I don't have to,
You don't have to eat
and
cheeseburgers and
cheeseburger all day long. Yeah. You can still have good food. It doesn't have to be
yeah.
cheeseburgers.
Right. Right.
Um or whatever. Or like Chinese takeout. Got all the Chinese takeout I
Mm.
love. Orange beef.
Oh, dude.
Um itis. And yeah, so he went up to grow. He was always kind of a weed grower, and so
Okay.
he was growing weed. He left the restaurant and was, going back and forth between doing that and growing weed up in Mendocino. And
Okay.
then hooked up with this chick who had land, and
Ooh.
she's a Trustafarian. You know what the Trustafarian is?
I know what a
Uh,
Rastafarian is.
The Trustafarian is a hippie with a trust fund.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a piece of work, but she was like, you know, she was it's funny because he was like a 5'2", like Brooklyn tattooed drummer guy, really like fun and outgoing, and she was like 5'11", like just kind of intense
Mm.
lady. And but anyway, he was growing weed for her, and then they had kids, and then they're like, well, she's like, I don't want to be in this business, and they moved to Hawaii and bought like a plot.
Okay.
Here. And then at one point they're like, hey, you want to come out? and that was right when things were wrapping up in Phoenix, where it was
Yeah.
just like I was just kind of okay, it's time to do the next thing, and I'm like, yeah, let's go, So I just packed my bags and flew out to
So when they
Northern
said come
Surfboard
out, was it to move or was it like come visit?
to help out on their farm. They have a thing called here. Have you heard of wolfing?
No.
Wolfing is this thing where, and it gets kind of bastardized in Hawaii, right? Because
Hmm.
it's Hawaii and sand. But wolfing is this thing where you go and someone's got like an organic farm in Costa Rica, and it's basically for hippies who don't want to work but want to go on vacation.
Hmm.
And what you do is you go to this farm, you work on the farm for room and board, right? No
Hmm.
money, you just room and board, and you go work on the farm. And but they were so I did that with them, so I was just living on their land, and it turned from like I was living in a room to like, oh, yeah, you have to move down to the platform and the tents to
Oh
me just
wow.
bouncing out of there. Yeah. But they weren't really growing anything. They were doing a lot of prep. They just looked a lot of weed being smoked, man.
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot of weed being smoked.
is it legal in Hawaii?
It's medical.
Oh, medical. Okay.
It's medical only. Like Hawaii's kind of kept it medical.
Okay.
Um, and so you can get it, but at the same time, it's like it's not policed really.
Right. Yeah.
But they were
It's
just
like
smoking weed,
anywhere.
just growing enough for themselves. And they weren't like
Okay.
they weren't doing the business anymore.
Okay.
That wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did trim for them like a couple times. It's
Hmm.
just like that's boring work, but um,
I bet.
yeah, it's
Uh,
just
yeah. So you're not working for them anymore, but you just decided to stay out there because you like it, or?
yeah, it was all. I mean, it was kind of at a certain point, either you go out and then like things aren't the way they said they would be,
Hmm.
and I had no idea what I was getting into, you know. And I'm like, I have no idea. I've never been out to Hawaii.
Right. Yeah.
I've never been. So Big Island is like, you got like I live in Kona, which is like kind of more touristy, developed kind of spot. But other than that, like, and then there's Waikoloa north of here, and that's more like a kind of a suburban spot, and it's across from like where all the resorts are in the
Okay.
Waikoloa area. Other than that, like Hawaii is very like non-developed. The Big Island is very non-developed. It's very
Hmm.
like, everything's expensive to do for one thing. And
Yeah.
then there's a resistance to it, like on the east side in Hilo, it's very like, I mean, it's a lot of it's about like the Hawaii, it's like the Hawaiian history thing, and like they will fight you if you just want to come in and try and like buy stuff up, they will fight you.
Yeah.
They will find ways to like not you won't get your permits, you won't get your, unless you butter the right, I won't
Right.
say it's corrupt, but you gotta do things right around here, whatever
Right.
whatever that means. And but Kona is kind of like, it's got like subdivisions and um
Yeah.
and kind of like little plots where it's like, okay, this neighborhood is Palisades. I live
Okay.
in Hamburger Hill, which is like the oldest subdivision.
Okay.
It's kind of like the hood, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
But it's like a local Hawaiian hood, It's a bunch of, you know, but it's changed since COVID. A lot of those houses that were being rented have sold, and
Hmm.
other people have moved in.
Yeah. Doesn't
Um,
something come from Kona? Like, do they have a specific
Coffee,
coffee?
coffee,
Okay. Okay.
Kona coffee.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Eh,
it's that expensive because you have to pay American wages to harvest it. It's still good, but there's
okay.
a lot of bad Kona coffee. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So that's what like that land I was on was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago, macadamias was the crop, the
Oh,
cash
okay.
crop.
Yeah.
And then like, in like other places like Australia and Indonesia started growing macadamias, and then that market dropped out, and then people switched to coffee.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I moved in there. I moved in like, it was just very poor communication, and like I was like, oh, maybe you can get a job, or there was just different versions of what would happen.
yeah.
And then I get there, and they're not really harvesting anything for market. They're just kind of doing stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's like, like yeah. So anyway, like after a month, like my funds are getting depleted, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here, you know. and I bought like a really cheap car with the last of my money I had, and which if you in Kona in Hawaii is like like the car market here is so inflated because of like
Yeah.
how expensive it is to get more cars out here,
Right.
and like but I got this thing. It was like yeah, it just had no suspension left, and but it drove well. It was an old Toyota Camry,
Nice.
and I got a place and a job. Well, that's the thing too, is like you're like, oh, maybe you can go get a job. And like town is like a 25-minute drive down river,
Ugh.
1,500 feet.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, there's a bus and it's improved since I first got here. It's
Yeah.
called the Helion. And it's like, it is a third world bus system. It's not like you think I lived in San Francisco. You're like, okay,
Right.
this bus is 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
The bus could be an hour late.
Really? And nobody cares? They just, it's
One
just,
time, and I gotta go to work, and I'm like, "Hey, you're an hour late." I looked at the bus driver lady. She's like, "Oh, you want to get on, or you want to go home?"
I love it.
Okay. Yeah, you
That's
cannot
awesome.
see in California. Everyone is like, you have this righteous indignation of like
Yeah.
how things should be, and it's not happening. Yeah, they're just like, okay, they'll just go slower,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
I've seen kids
Wow.
do it when they're like, like
Oh man. That's
so.
funny.
Then that turned to me like. Now I'm kind of invested, I'm like working, paying bills, rent,
Yeah.
and then finding a place here was, just tough.
Yeah. Where were you
Um,
working? Where did you get a job at?
well, having done theater for
Hmm.
so long, I have restaurant experience.
Okay.
I've been working in restaurants since like San Luis Obispo days.
Okay.
So, I started and yeah, so I worked at this Italian place as a bartender and they need bartenders here.
Mm.
Because, well, I mean, it's like it's better money to serve, but there's more need for bartenders. As soon as they saw I had bartending experience, I started
Okay.
working at places.
Isn't there more tips with bartending bar?
Yeah, there's tips.
Like more
Yeah,
so than
no, well, there's different kinds of bartending, right? If I'm working in a
hmm
club, you know,
hmm
in a club downtown San Francisco, I remember a guy I went to school with. For some reason, he was working at this really exclusive club where like the Warriors would show up and stuff.
Oh,
A guy was
nice.
doing 1,500 a night,
Whoo!
and
Dang, dude.
that was like,
Mm.
2005 money too,
Wow.
Um, so here it's not like that. And you're mostly like you're doing drinks to go out to the tables. And
Right.
you're doing a lot of it's Hawaii, so
Yeah.
blending
Yeah.
but the place I worked at had like more of a craft cocktail. It's funny because I was listening to you and Jimmy last night before bed. I was just
Oh, the episode?
we were talking about she's pouring beers and not doing the whatever this kind of bartending,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but distinguish between them. But either way, it's
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a difference between working at a place that's primarily a bar or a club as opposed to
yeah,
like a restaurant. Like I
yeah,
think where Emmy works, it's a pizza place, but then they also have a bar that's connected to the pizza place. So that's
yeah.
totally different, because you figure people are, or like my wife used to work at a steakhouse and they had a bar in there, but it's like people are primarily going there for dinner,
They'll sit
right?
before dinner while they're waiting on the wait
Yes,
list, and
exactly.
they'll have a drink.
Yeah,
And then you're in the well, and then you've got your rail and all your guests there, and you might have another bartender to do those guests, and then you're like, and then you're making the drinks for the rest of the restaurant as people are
yeah,
ordering them,
right, right.
or cracking or pouring a glass of wine,
Yeah,
however it
yeah,
goes.
yeah,
Um,
yep.
so
So is that
that's it, man. Get here in Hawaii, get a job, waiting tables, or
is that
just
is
setting
that
up
what you're doing
gigs.
now?
Well,
Are you
not right now. I'm doing Manta dives, but it's
like
really inconsistent because Manta. Okay, so we
like
have this
manta
thing here,
rays?
Manta rays. Yeah, so we have
Really?
this like yeah, we have this. Like you got all these tourists here, and sorry, this screens. Um, and we have these coastal manta rays here,
Hmm.
and this is the only place in the world they do it. But they do this like it started because there was this hotel down south and they flashed a light, and these plankton would come up to the light. These manta rays are like they're plankton feeders, and
Hmm.
they'd come up and this one figured it out to do this like kind of roll. But anyway, they
Mm,
come feed on the plankton. But this one does start doing this, like this roll, and they have a
yeah,
white belly. And then others figured it out. And you have to, they're intelligent. They have like the highest brain to mass ratio of any fish.
really.
And so some genius figured this technique out, and then the other mantas copied it. And then people started, this is Keoho Bay down just south of here, like 15 minutes away. And and then people just started going out there to go watch them. And then someone said, "Oh shoot, I'll bring some lights out." And they started bringing lights out, and then the mantis would come up to their lights because the plankton would come up to the lights on their thing. And then someone said, "Well, I'll charge some people like $20 a head to come out here and watch this."
Nice,
And
nice.
now it's like an industry. It's an industry. It's like rated one of the top 10 things to do in the world, like
Interesting.
by some travel and leisure magazine.
Okay.
But it's pretty epic. They're giant. They're like the females get really big, and like the average ones we see are like 14 feet across, and
So
they
it's
come
just so
up.
is it a bunch of them coming up all at the same time, and it's just quite a thing to see? Is that what it is, or?
That depends. They like there's now you've got a bunch of boards out there, right? And so they're kind
Hmm.
of going out and they're seeing, oh, where are the plankton at?
Hmm.
And they come up and then maybe a couple will compete and they'll do this thing. So you're on this board. We've got like a old foam surfboard with lights in the bottom of it and a
Hmm.
battery, and it's shining the light down. The plankton come up, and then they'll come up and they'll literally come in with and so and then along the board we've got on each board six people like holding on to like this PVC pipe, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and they're like holding on, looking down. We've got pool noodles on their legs so their legs are flat, and then Manta come up and like
Mm.
scoop up the plankton, and they're coming within inches of you. Some of them touch you, but you can't touch them. It's like Vegas, and
That's like a rule
um,
that you guys put in place, or is it that the rays will respond badly if you do?
both they have like a protective coating, and you
Okay.
can't. It's just not good for them to be like you can see like if they've been scraped, they'll have like a little mark on them,
Okay.
and it's also like this kind of self-policing thing. The the Department of Land and Natural Resources in Hawaii is
Hmm.
kind of like threatened to start controlling these things. They're putting a limit on the number of people that can go out, and so it's like, well, then the guys are like, okay, we got to self-police this, so we'll kick off anybody who like gets frisky.
Okay.
Um,
Do you have to do that very often?
we don't, but we have like a little more of like it's like we do a longer dive. It's a better, like a nicer boat. A
Hmm.
lot of these operations are doing like, it's like what do you call it? Like a Zodiac. You cram everyone in, and then you go dive, splash and dash. You like go in there and you like go see some mantas, 15 minutes, get out of the water, boom, go do it again. You like turn and burn
Okay.
it,
Okay.
you know? And then there you might get some people, some yahoo who's been drinking,
Right.
whatever, every once in a while. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, man, that's really interesting. I didn't even
But
know.
I'm doing that.
I have to check that out next. Well, if I ever go, I've never been to
Yeah.
Hawaii, but someday.
Well, okay.
I know
Um,
the wife wants to
I'm
get
doing
there
that
eventually.
to pay for but pay my bills while I'm going to school. I'm doing a nursing degree.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nice, dude. Awesome.
yeah.
That's
So
pretty
that's
cool.
like
Because how old are you at this point?
I am 49.
Okay, 49. And you're looking for a new career. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm in the last semester of this, and I don't want to work. I don't want to bartend. I don't want to be in another restaurant,
Yeah.
except as a customer. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So why nursing? What's appealing to you about nursing?
Well, I knew I needed to go just when I got here, and after a few years of just bartending,
Hmm.
um, I was like, this is not really like if I could keep making good money, and what I would do is I'd go work at the resorts north of here,
Mm.
go work at like the Four Seasons, Manalani, get into one of those places, and where you're doing like a more high-end clientele, you know, that's what
Yeah.
I would end up if I wanted to like make that commitment to it. But I particularly don't find it like ultimately like, I wanted to. I love science and I like using, you know, I want to do something that like, okay, I'm using a little bit more of like the functional part of my brain that I want to use, right?
Right.
Whereas bartending is like really it's being social, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You can get all the, a lot of people and that's where I gravitate to because I like to cook and
Mm,
gravitate toward, like the cocktailing part of it. But
right.
really it's simple. There's a recipe, you execute the recipe, you know?
Yeah.
And I can do that kind of stuff like quick and accurately and fast.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's like building relationships and like, and
Yeah, because you get regulars and people that are in
yeah, you
there
get
often.
regulars and I really like I hate it.
Oh, really?
I hate it. Yeah, I don't like it feels like in this town it feels like this like popularity contest or either that or you're everyone's favorite bartender because you get
Yeah.
heavy on the drinks, like,
Right.
hey, what's
Right.
up, buddy?
See? Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's the part that would be hard for me because back when I was a drinker, like being around drunk people was fun because you were one of them, right? Oh, just
Hmm.
get a bunch of friends together, or we get hammered and we're laughing and having a good time.
Yeah.
But if I'm sober and I'm hanging out with a bunch of and I'm around drunk people, I cannot stand them. I seriously, I just drunk people to me are
Yeah.
some of the most annoying people on the planet. Unless you're drinking with them, then it's a different story. But
Well, I see. That's what we call occupational hazards.
yeah,
And believe me, so that's the other side of it too. It's like the
yeah,
occupational hazard of it. And then if I'm not drinking, like I'm just like, it's I don't know, there's a lot of just maybe it's everywhere, but it's just like, man, there's a lot of people are just they are damaging themselves here,
hmm hmm
and I'm witnessing it and I'm partaking and
yeah, that's true. And you almost feel like you have a hand in it in a sense, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
So you
So there's
switch to
there's both sides
nursing
of
where
it.
you're actually helping people as opposed to damaging people.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're
Mm,
making a good living too. It's like it's not a it's tough. I mean, it depends what you're doing. Everyone thinks of what nursing is, and it's like what you think of is like, the nurse on med surge or the emergency room nurse. There's a
hmm
lot of different aspects of it. You can do clinic, but you'll make more money in a hospital setting.
Right. Right.
That's that you have to think that to like our particular, system of dealing with, um, the medical,
Yeah.
the economics of the medical field.
Yeah.
Hospitals are expensive.
Would you have to be dealing with like I don't know, for lack of a better word, like gross stuff? Like,
Yeah,
like hurt people, blood everywhere, that kind of stuff all the time
all
or
that. If you're like
okay.
ER and the med surge, yeah,
Okay. I mean, is
you
that what
know.
you're looking to do specifically or
Um,
like be an ER nurse?
I think, well, a lot of that has to do with where I'm at, and
Hmm
I think I like my life here, and so I might look to stay here on island.
hmm
So that would probably mean staying at the Kona Community Hospital, which is like the county hospital. It's a
Okay.
little, it's a country hospital. It's like we don't have, you know, things. We fly people out you know, to Oahu for like when things are really complicated.
Right. For major stuff.
If you need neurosurgeon or like you
Mm,
need anything like, our NICU for like babies, if the baby has any complications or is premature, they just fly them out to Oahu. They
okay.
have better facilities for that.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like I'm doing clinical hours, and last week I was on the med surg floor, and one guy I didn't have to do his ostomy care, it just worked out that way,
hmm
you know. But yeah, this guy traumatic brain injury
Oof.
and was impaled by like a bike accident that led to
Oof.
like a pole going through his insides,
Oh,
and he's had continual like but like GI related issues, and that
yeah.
culminated in like into like a frozen abdomen, frozen like part of his colon was no longer working,
hmm
and along with that, the TBI had kind of given him a little bit of like behavioral kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and so
And are you bothered by that kind of stuff or it doesn't phase you?
it's like anything. It's like okay, yep, there's another penis. Yep, there's, you
Yeah.
know, and you have to be prepared to do anything. You can't go like I don't. I don't want to do that. If you are bothered by that, you can get into the clinical setting.
Hmm.
Eventually, I think I want to get like a advanced degree of some kind, like NP or APRN. We'll see, because there's, drawbacks to that as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you gotta get in there and whatever needs to be done. And yeah, after a while, you're like, yeah, it's been interesting. I've had my first death on the floor, someone with cancer,
Oh, wow.
with a patient of mine, and had to go, do all the what I could of, like, the paperwork around that.
Yeah.
And
Like elderly or like young?
yeah, she was elder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She's like a metastatic, like
Yeah.
stage 4 cancer. And
Yeah.
I actually saw her coming into the ER the week before, because I was doing an ER shift
Hmm.
and clinical round. And then, basically, like, saw, okay, refused any, like, okay, I don't want any kind of like intubations, or basically the stuff you do when you're like, okay, I'm done. Don't resuscitate me. Don't do this, because I've been doing
She was just
end
ready to
stage
die,
cancer.
basically, or
Yeah, basically, like, and then
Mhm.
of course she was in the hospital the next week, or in the med surg floor the next week, and was basically in comfort care measures,
Right.
which is like, just basically like enough morphine to, to make to ease the pain, which
Yeah.
made her basically like kind of just barely alive,
Right. Right.
she's pretty much out of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
a lot. And then you're like, but then I'm like, in there, and we're doing the things, preparing her for the morgue and putting her in a bag. And the nurse I was with that day was, and he's like, you know, I've done hundreds of these, you know. He's
Right.
like, do this, do that, do that, you do that for
Yeah.
a while, like, but then it's, you have to decide whether you want to be comfortable with that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, see, I would struggle with that, and I'm really glad there's people like you that can do it because obviously it's very needed. I mean, there's people getting
Yeah,
hurt all the time. People get diseases, they get hurt. There's accidents, right?
yeah,
All this stuff. I'm so glad that there's people. I mean, I have another friend who's a paramedic, and he's got some gnarly stories about the stuff he sees. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you stay sane with some of the stuff that you're dealing with. But I mean, like, I struggle with it anyway, but I would have a really hard time with like young children that are terminal
yeah,
cancer or stuff like that.
yeah.
Or honestly, for me, like, even in movies, even when it's fake, broken bones. I cannot handle the broken
I
bones, dude. I can do
Yeah,
blood and guts in movies, no problem. Brains hanging out, no problem. But someone snaps an arm or something or a leg, it's like, oh, can't do it, man.
yeah. I can. Like when I see it's like a football game, and they stopped. They actually, I think, thankfully, they stopped doing that. They used to like go like, look here, Joe. You see where his helmet hits here on his knee, and
Yeah.
then, oh, it's horrible. Look at, oh, here's another angle of it. Now they kind of cut away.
Yes, that's like every,
Here's another.
yeah.
Before they used to like get it, like, just do, and like, and I would just be like, oh, I'm going. I'm gonna get a
Yeah,
beer.
dude. That's like Vomit City
Um,
right there, man.
yeah.
Ugh, yuck.
Well, it means you're not a psychopath, you know?
Yeah,
No, because a psychopath would, like, part of you goes like, oh, that's happening to me, right? That's your
right,
reflexive kind of
right.
like, that's what makes you kind
Yeah.
of human, the psychopath's like, oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, who cares, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, if any of my kids, I'm thankfully, well, that's not true. My older daughter she did fracture her elbow when she was younger, but it wasn't like a break. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
any of my kids ever, like, broke something where you could tell, like, it was funny shaped or the wrong direction or whatever. I'd be like, ah. I'd be like, nope, can't do it, can't do it. So take them away in an ambulance or something. But, um, wow. All right, man. Well, jump into some music stuff.
Sure.
What do you think? Um, so I know you said you don't really, I mean, if I was understanding you correctly, you're kind of not really into music as much, or
Don't say that.
okay,
I don't have like a favorite,
okay,
I don't have like, I don't, typically I don't have favorites
hmm,
of things, or like some, and I don't have, actually, I think now sometimes I'm listening to stuff from the 90s.
okay,
I was listening to some Tool lately,
nice,
just because I was watching this like YouTube video of like other drummers trying to do Numa, like
yeah,
Tool.
Yeah.
and just like breaking their brains as
Yeah.
going
See,
through
that's what's
algorithms, you know?
awesome, right? When you
Yeah,
have somebody
yeah,
that can do something unique enough that almost nobody can recreate it. Because anybody can play drums,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But only some
No, I
people
can't
have
like
that, you
this.
know?
I can do that. But
Yeah.
once you get the other hand and the foot involved, it's like it goes wrong for me. I'm
Right.
really good at
Yeah.
doing one thing at a time, but like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah.
awesome. So back in the day though, like when I used to hang out over there and obviously John and I like that's one of the first things we bonded over was music and it was
Yeah.
back then for him and I it was all hip hop. Right. It was
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the early or late
I
80s,
remember
early
him trying to
90s.
spit fire.
Yeah.
He'd have some little lyrics going.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So I mean, but I don't remember like if you were into that too at that time or were you because you were like
No, I mean,
all I
I kind
remember
of
about
like,
you is you were like football guy. You hung out with all the football guys and you were like you were
yeah,
the sporty guy, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I was just, I don't know. I think I was just really awkward
Mm,
mostly.
hmm.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I didn't really like, I wasn't paying attention to what, like, as much, like what like other people were listening to or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. I didn't really like have that, like, connection
Yeah.
to, um, yeah, what are the other kids listening to on the block, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But when stuff would come on, you would enjoy it, right? I mean, there were certain things you would
Yeah.
enjoy, or even like playing football. I'm sure there was some certain pump up songs that were like, boy, this gets me psyched to get out there and, start hitting people.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess like, but yeah, I didn't really like, yeah, I didn't really like identify with it or play it like later.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was like, I remember going to like a couple like, like punk concerts,
Oh,
at
really?
Orchid, I think some friends would go out and I'm like,
Like local bands, you mean, or like?
yeah, I forget. But maybe it was in the San Luis Obispo days. Then I'd come back down.
Okay.
Like we'd go, to a Orchid concert.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
remember the names of any of the bands?
no,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
no. And they were, it was like, oh God, it's so angry.
Yeah, that's right. Uh,
But
that's
I
funny.
guess I had football for that, whereas my displaced rage,
Yeah, you
you
can get your
know.
aggressions out there, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. By the way, did you play beyond high school in football? Did you play it in college?
No,
Okay.
no. It was too short and
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't like I think I wasn't I definitely didn't maximize whatever ability I did have. I
Hmm.
think, it's just more like, I think that's what's been a challenge for me with nursing school. And it's been great because I've been able to overcome it. It's
Hmm.
like probably my whole family like has like pretty bad ADHD,
Okay.
and I think poor habits, a lot of poor habits that I think my dad was not like super good at like, okay, he was a disciplinarian, but he didn't really have discipline,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
he is big into like, why did you do this thing? And make, I now I have to like get my belt out.
Right.
And but like in terms of like having like a routine that you stick to and you're like accomplish and you like get better and like, like, okay, what did you do? Okay, how
Yeah.
did you do? Okay, how can you do better? Like there
Right.
wasn't a lot of that, which is like I think subsequently in life I've like taken on, like how can
Okay.
I do better?
Yeah.
But it's definitely like with nursing school, it's like a challenge. I actually got a prescription for, you know, ADHD medication, but at the same time, like also just like, okay, all right, put everything in my calendar, put an alarm, put 5 alarms on for that task,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like just always be in it and be
Yeah.
somewhat a little more high functioning, you
Okay.
know, in that sense. Like, I'm good in the moment, like when things are going down and like,
Hmm.
like the stuff's hitting the fan
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm good at like, staying calm. But yeah, I'm better now at like, okay, just like what do you need to do? You gotta that test. Okay, I need to get ready for that test now, not
Hmm.
like 24 hours before the test,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And then all I would do is like, kind of have anxiety around it and then like, oh
Yeah.
God, I gotta get start studying for that test. And it's like, oh, what well, When did you block that time in?
Yeah.
Even for
Right.
like going to bed. Like, oh, I gotta get ready for bed. And
Yeah.
then like it's like time to go to bed. It's like, oh, I'm getting ready for bed. Well, the time for getting ready for bed is actually like that's a good hour-long process because
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta prepare my lunch. I gotta take my melatonin and my this, and
Yeah.
it's gotta kick in magnesium, and yeah.
So you're more of a planner than a spur of the moment kind of guy?
I'm learning to be more better at planning. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
always, yeah.
Okay. Um, it's funny because I remember back in the day, like with your dad, like I used to think he didn't really care for me back then. But it was probably just all of John's friends, but like, because we used to call over there, and this is before cell
Yeah.
phones, and it was always like Electrolux, whatever, like you have to answer the phone, like, because he was running the vacuum company out of the house. And I remember whenever I'd say, "Oh, is John there?" It was almost like this, yeah, like this like sound of annoyance, like, "Oh, I'm trying to sell vacuums, and my kids' friends keep calling here all the time." It's like
Yeah.
so
Well, part
funny,
of it is like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so funny,
He was not a good, he was good at fixing vacuums, but he's not as good at selling them.
right, right, yeah, it was funny. And I don't know if you remember, you probably don't remember this, but this was one of the most humiliating things ever. It was the first time I had ever gone over there for dinner. I didn't remember what we were eating.
Uh-huh.
That's how humiliating this was. I don't remember what the meal was. I think I was over there to spend the night with John or something. But we had dinner, and everybody was there. Like your dad was there, Alice was there,
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
Melanie and Melissa and Jenny, all you guys were there, right? And we're just hanging out around the thing, and something got brought up about. I think John said something about eating dogs or something, right? I don't remember how this came up,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, what came out of my mouth was Chinese people eat dogs. I just said that. And I just remember it was like there was like like you've seen the movies and it's like and like the record
The record
scratches
goes
and
off.
everything
Yeah, yeah.
stops and everything just stopped and everybody at the table is just staring at me and I'm going oh my gosh and then John goes real quietly goes dude not at the dinner table. I was like okay and I was like oh my gosh these people are gonna hate me now. It's
I
terrible.
don't even remember.
Yeah, I bet I bet nobody remembers but me because it was so humiliating for me. I just felt like such an idiot. And I was like,
No,
"Oh my
I think that's like
gosh."
adolescence too, where you take all these like things and like I remember one time I had a giant pimple on my nose. And I was like, I can't go to school.
Right. It's the end of
This
the
is
world.
stupid now to even think about it. Like,
I know.
and
I
I was
know.
like, I was like panicking, and then my dad's like, I can't go. And then he's like, what's wrong? I'm sick, and he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Nothing wrong with you. You're not sick, you know. He drives me to
Hmm.
school, like forces me to school, and I just like walking down the hall, and it's like everyone is staring at this giant pimple on my nose. I'm like,
Yes.
no one gives a F.
You're the only one who knows about it. Right? Right?
Yeah.
You're worried about it. No one else
You see
cares.
it, yeah,
Yeah,
and then someone might
exactly.
pick on you because you're insecure about it. So actually, John made the comment, like, because I used to be so kind of like susceptible to these kinds of things, like comments like that.
Uh-huh.
At one point, it was like maybe 5 or 10 years ago. He like tried to throw one of those shots across the bow, and I'm like, about something about my appearance or this. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever. And he's like, I think he was jealous because it didn't bother me, And I'm just like,
Right.
and he's like, man, I can't even get to you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like and you're like, "Yes, that's because I'm mature now. See?
Yeah.
I've arrived."
I'm
That's
here.
so
This is who I
funny.
am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Got a
Oh
dirty
man.
t-shirt.
Um all right, so if you can do this, great. If not, totally fine. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
gathering like the music, like as far as knowing bands, artists, that stuff. But could you give me like four or five like bands, artists, or
I
whatever that
mean, Miles
you?
Davis, Michael
Okay,
Jackson,
okay,
you know,
nice, old school stuff.
um, yeah, I think after college or when I was in college, I like, took a jazz history class and got into
Hmm.
the post bebop, cool jazz era, Miles Davis, you know, like kind of like that, after Charlie Parker was like, "Burp, burp, burp, burp," more like, Um, and then, yeah, right now, like, I think just I think it was just old man music. It's like so smooth, like, like, whatchamacallit, like Dire Straits
Oh, nice.
right now, Dire Straits.
Okay.
These are like things I have like a pretty, like a nice system I like to listen to.
Hmm.
It's like I bought some old like 1987 Klipsch speakers. They're about this tall,
Nice.
and I built my own amplifier for them, and I actually play this. If I have a CD and I'm in the mood, I play it on old PlayStation 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually like this little like audio file, like little work, like I don't know what you call it. Like I guess the old PlayStation 1, Sony put so much money into the PlayStation because
Hmm.
they were making this shift into the gaming market, and so they put so much into the like just how the thing worked in general that it actually plays like really well
Mm.
as a CD player, but only
Okay.
like the first version of it. And then
Oh,
they're all dying. So I actually bought this one off a guy on eBay who like redid all the capacitors because capacitors age, like
okay.
recapped it.
You mean like the
Like,
PS2, PS3, they don't play it as well, you mean?
no, no, you don't. And
Okay.
even like even the subsequent iterations, it's got to be SP-001.
Hmm. Wow.
And like the first iteration of it. So after that, they're like, okay, we're a success. Let's let's like save money and all because
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
kind of like it was probably a loss leader at that point. It's like
Yeah.
we overbuilt this thing,
Okay.
and it really is not that complicated when you get in there. It's like I tried to fix up one and it didn't work, and then I just ended up buying one from some guy on eBay
Okay.
who like it's just a hobby of his. He like likes to like mess around, and you can recap the whole thing.
Yeah, like refurbished kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
you can do that with old audio equipment if you buy like an old like an old amplifier.
Hmm.
Like, oh, we're trying to think of the name, but one of the ones that are good. But you can do that, and then you kind of like the capacitors will degrade over time,
Hmm.
and so you can go in there and you just get the values of each capacitor and you redo it.
Okay.
So,
So do you feel
so I
like
listen to that.
do you think it does it sound better on the PlayStation than like just a CD player?
Then a regular CD player, you know, it sounds like uh, I was trying to make something funny up, but it's like, toot my own. Sounds like I'm smelling my own farts, and they've amplified them into a deeper level.
Okay.
But you know what? Like that PlayStation, it's a little more like it's like smoother,
Hmm.
and that's the thing with like digital stuff, and that they tend to be a little like edgy and crispy.
Yeah.
And people who are into analog are like, oh, okay, well, it's just too grating if you listen to it for too long. Especially with my speakers, because they have a very like they kind of tend to put the high output stuff a little more intensely.
Right.
So they can be I've actually had that experience with them. It's like, oh, that amplifier and that combination is like, it's like a little too much after a while.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so like, those Dire Straits albums just really like my Six Blade Knife,
Okay.
anything you could hear the breath.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
I love
know.
that stuff too. I think music back then was a lot better in a lot of ways.
It's
You
funny.
know?
I'm the master tenant in this house, and
Hmm.
so like I rent it out, and like as a kid I moved in. He's like 24, and he plays guitar, and he's getting me into all this like 90s like grind like 90s stuff. It's
Nice.
like yeah. So well we've been listening. So he's all into that. He loves like Soundgarden,
Yeah, see?
uh,
That's
Alice in
amazing.
Chains.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing to me when a kid that young
he knows more
is
about
into
that
that.
this stuff than I do.
Yeah. And it was your era
Yeah.
because that was like high school for you when that
Yeah.
started coming out, you know? That's so cool. I love when I meet young people like that. Like, "Oh yeah, I'm into this." I'm like, "What?" It's just
Well, especially since now all music sucks. Like if it's
Yes,
come out on like a national album,
for the most part,
it's so
yeah.
trite and like produced and so like without any kind of like
Yeah.
it just sounds like the same, like it's like a like this meat grinder of like you just put
Yes.
like a different face on it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yet the kids, they love it for some weird reason. I don't get it. Like
yeah, they've probably basically like figured out how to hack like that market of like, oh, we just need to have something new to pay attention to.
yeah.
And this is the new thing. I mean, and I watch it. I'm just like, what's that new girl? She's blonde, and her whole thing is to get up and do a dance. And then at a certain point, she turns her butt around and she shakes it a certain way, and everyone goes like, yeah, she's doing the thing. And it's like that took no frick. She like that's her thing. Like she's
Yeah.
on stage and she's kind of like like an maybe a 7.5 or an 8. She's a little,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't know if she's even like a really good singer or not.
Do you know who
But
it
meanwhile,
is?
oh, like, huh?
Do you remember who it is?
Oh, Samantha. I could look for it,
Samantha. Samantha's her first name?
maybe,
And this is new?
but
She's newer?
she's newer.
Okay.
Um, it's so funny because I've got everything I just said doesn't is not enough to like do a search on, but um, but who's really good? Like Billie Eilish is amazing.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
That's amazing, and that's
Hmm.
that like, and half of that, a good portion of that is the production of her brother. Like his
Hmm.
production is really awesome,
Yes.
and it's like if you listen to those on like a good setup, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's stuff going on. It's moving around. It's like it's
Right.
three-dimensional.
Yeah. And they write their own stuff, which I appreciate too. That's always to me more impressive than someone who just sings someone else's songs, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're a product at that point, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
You're a product.
Right.
You're just like, oh wait, I'm getting to be this. I'm being given the gift of being in the spotlight,
Hmm.
you know, by
Right.
this, giant machine,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I think that Billie Eilish was Ocean Eyes. It was
Yeah.
all like these things like they became viral on their own,
Hmm.
you know? And
Yeah.
and then they're like, well, okay, we might as well make her, she's
Yeah.
already she's already got a market,
Yeah. We
We
can make
can't
money
we
off
can't we
her.
can't mess
Yeah.
with it. We can't mess with it.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could try.
Right.
I'm sure they've tried.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's what's way different now than what it was like when we were younger, right? Is you had to get a record label, you had to do all this stuff. Now, I can go write a song, put it on the internet, and if enough people like it, I can be famous overnight. I don't need a record label, right? Then the record labels are calling me, "Hey, we want to put out a full-length album. We're going to pay you this much money to put out a full-length album." It's like, okay, cool.
yeah.
It's like back then to get discovered was so much harder back in the day without the internet and all that ability.
Yeah, how much it costs to do like a recording setup
Hmm.
um and I mean really all they are is a middleman, you
Yeah.
know. The
Yes.
middlemen like have controlled it and that's why things like this on like YouTube,
Hmm.
you don't have you have their issues with them, but it's like, oh, okay, you can get rights. Like I love the 49ers, right? I grew up
Mm.
loving the 49ers.
Nice.
And now it's like I don't live around like Bay Area, so I don't listen to but like especially during COVID, I was just listening to like podcasts,
Hmm.
and now it's like that actually is like overtaking the radio market,
Oh, for sure.
where it's just like and a lot of these guys just love the 49ers,
Hmm.
and then they just now they can report it but now the teams are actually giving them journalist passes
Hmm.
because they realize that's the way the market's going,
Yeah.
and it's just these guys who talk about and like who should they draft, it's unending
Yeah.
and but it's more like, yeah, it's not like the 3 hour radio show, you know.
Right.
It's different. It's a different thing. It's more like connected, and you're
Yeah.
messaging they'll be messaging them, and then they'll comment on your messages.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. It's more
yeah,
personable. Like you can actually
yeah,
feel like you're part of this thing that's being created,
yeah.
you
You're part of
know?
this community. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And rather than yeah, part of like, okay, this is all I have to listen to. This is the one voice I have to listen to. for my sports talk radio.
Right. Yeah. Back when it was just Jim
Sabrina.
Rome.
Yeah, Jim Rome. He was from Santa Barbara, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, what's he doing now? Is he on the radio?
Hmm. Yeah, he's
Um,
still got the same show.
he kind of pioneered that. Like
Yeah.
maybe he didn't, but that whole being a jerk kind of like
Right.
market.
Yeah.
I think it's Sabrina Carpenter.
Oh,
The-
I know. Yeah, she's an ex Disney star.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, and now she's a pop star, and she's breaking out of the Disney now. So it's like her songs are explicit, and she's getting real
Oh,
sexual
okay.
and all her stuff. You know how the Disney stars do that.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
said I just searched on YouTube, Sabrina Carpenter's dance move. Yeah, it's her turning her butt around.
Okay, that's
It's
dude.
getting on her knees,
Ah,
making her parents proud.
yeah. So in our day, it was like something amazing, like the moonwalk, and
Yeah,
now this is what we got as an amazing dance move.
I don't know. I mean,
Terrible.
part of it is like, yeah, I think it's like you thought I was this innocent Disney artist and
Hmm.
watch me just get illicit for
Yes.
just a little bit. But it's not like, she's not, and it's not like what's her name? Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter,
Oh, Miley
Miley
Cyrus.
Cyrus, when
Yeah.
she did that. She was just like, what was that one thing where she did like the
Wrecking Ball.
wrecking ball thing and went out on stage and like went all nuts and it was I think the 90s were a lot of like, oh, boundaries and rules. We're gonna like crash all of those.
Yeah.
And there's like Madonna like saying like a virgin, and it was like,
Yeah.
ooh, she's like a virgin.
Yeah.
It's like that's dirty.
Right.
And now it's like but then once you knock all the walls down and then there's no walls to go up against, it's
Hmm.
like okay, this is too much, man.
Yeah. Well, that's where you
So
got the
like yeah,
Cardi
Miley
B's
Cyrus,
and all that, right?
yeah,
It's like there's like no rules anymore as far as what's acceptable, what's considered trashy, what's like because you said when Madonna was doing what she was doing, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh." Like it's so risque, it's so sexual and so this. It's like you
yeah,
look at that now, it's like that's so mild compared to what else is happening, in the music world.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
At a certain point, I was like, okay, okay, all right, that's maybe I'm just getting old though,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but
it kind of makes you wonder where we're going to end up. Like, because if we're getting to a point where there's really no boundaries, then where does that end? You know?
I honestly think I think it's changing.
Okay.
Like I think but I think we all have to do it on our own, like
Hmm.
but I think people are going more toward the right and more toward values and more toward
Okay.
like I'm not specifically like religious, but I do see the value of like having a system
Sure.
in place, like a moral code,
Hmm.
a belief system,
Yeah.
and because like what are you without it? You just like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna do what I feel like doing, and it's
Right.
like
Doesn't work.
that's ultimately,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Um, so I know you said at the beginning, at this point in your life, you feel like you're kind of mid as far as, but kind of leaning more right. And I know you told me in the email that when you were living in the Bay Area, you were definitely left leaning, which I don't think you're allowed to be right leaning in the Bay Area. I think they kill you if you're right leaning and you live in the Bay
Yeah,
Area.
you just shut up, probably. I'm sure those people just like I would see it sometimes. They do this and they go,
Yeah.
I'll just go meet in
Yeah. Yeah.
my maybe have a gentleman's club or something you go to or
Right. Right.
um
Yeah. So kind of just elaborate on that a little more. So, like, well, first of all, when you lived here in Central Coast, California, like, what was your kind of? Did you even have a political bent at that time? Or are you too young to really have thought about it? Or
I mean, I don't think we didn't have my dad took us to Sunday school because that was some free daycare. That was the
right.
extent of his like religious leanings.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then not that political, but I think they play in hand with
Hmm.
like and then um at one point I was always like, a little bit like this. It's funny because you think of me as a jock, but like I'm kind of like an introvert and I grew up like, after my dad retired, we like lived in a trailer park and we didn't have a lot of people to socialize with.
Yeah.
Like my dad like one point like bought like a whole stack of National Geographics from a garage sale.
Oh, nice.
And I was just like pouring through those and
Yeah.
I got totally into like they did this whole like season year-long thing where they were talking about like the evolution of man, like, Bones like Lucy
Yeah.
found in,
Yeah.
the Rift Valley and, from, multiple millions of years ago.
Yep.
And then like, I read stuff on marine biology. I wanted to be a marine biologist for like, that was like my childhood kind of thing. I want to be a marine
Okay.
biologist,
Well, that's kind of
you
cool.
know.
You're working with the manta rays now because that's kind of similar.
I love the ocean, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
I made the decision. I surf now,
Oh, wow.
which, I never did as a kid. My dad would never have bought a surfboard or anything or taken us to that. And,
Right.
so that was something I like in my last year in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, I was doing. I was like, okay, I'm tired of like saying this. Oh, there's that thing. I've always wanted to do that. I always
Yeah.
wanted to do that. Like it was just like I just was saying that over and over about stuff. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, I'm gonna do that. And it's really like it's it's the hardest, especially for someone of my body type and my
Hmm.
age. It's like surfing is not easy
Yeah. I
in
bet.
general. But I'm just thick-headed enough to kept at it and actually
Yeah.
like surf. Okay, now
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, Hawaii too. That's some prime surf stuff
well,
there,
that was
right?
part of the thing. Like, it's like I was like doing this thing where I'm like, I'm gonna learn to surf, and then I went to Phoenix for 6 months.
Yeah, the surfing's not
At
very
one
good in
point, I
Phoenix.
was like trying to like my mom's house had like a pool, and
Yeah.
I brought my surfboards with me, and I put like a bungee cord under my leash at the pool and was trying to like paddle practice.
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
it was awkward. I think I kept, I don't know, like dragging pool chairs into the pool or something. And and then I come out here, like this board that was this beast of a board. It's like short and wide, and it's called a Firewire sweet potato.
Hmm.
And it was just not for the waves here, so you like think of it. And I remember almost taking out some people, but yeah, I just figured it out by different boards. And
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah, as a kid, yeah, we didn't have like that. My dad was always conservative though.
Right.
Like whatever that meant. It's just maybe because he was military. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
patriotic, kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was his, you know. But um,
But then that switched when you
I
moved to the
think
Bay Area because that was just kind of
yeah,
forced
I
on you
think
up
I think
there.
I was always like whatever. Like I think I was always a little left leaning in
Okay.
terms of like I don't know. People should, and I really do feel this. I think what, do what you want to do. Just don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Just like take care of yourself and other people.
Right.
But I think a lot of this has become the way our political system is set up, and we've developed into this identity politics thing where
Oh
both
yeah.
sides are doing it, and
Yes.
the culture wars,
Yep.
and it's just like continually, and I think like I've always like had this thing in my head where I've seen it. Like I'm in the Bay Area, and I have gay friends. One of my best friends back there was, I think is non-binary now, probably,
Hmm.
but she was. This is funny. Yeah, but like she's doing well. She's like doing like shows in New York, and
Oh wow.
again because
Nice.
she's like the non-binary, half Haitian, black, half Jewish. That's her
That
identity
covers
now.
all the bases, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this and it's enough. She put her work in,
Yeah.
and forgive me if I'm losing track because I took the flu vaccine on Monday and I got flu symptoms yesterday.
Oh,
It's
see,
dead.
dude,
I'm kind of a little like,
see, don't.
help me pick up thoughts.
Yeah, I will for sure, but I'll share the story with you because I've
But
had the flu once in my whole life, and
yeah,
it was only when I had the flu shot. because and I know and here's what's funny about it. Like people say that all the time. Oh, I never got the flu. And they say, "You don't know that's what gave you the flu. You can't be sure of that, blah blah." This case, dude. So I was in the hospital. I'll make this story short, but I was in the
Yeah.
hospital because I had appendicitis. Like me and my wife were in Vegas for our anniversary trip. I ended up getting sick. Turned out it was appendicitis. It had ruptured. I almost died. They had to take it out, right? So I'm in recovery for like 6 days because if your appendix ruptures, you're in the
Yeah,
hospital
you
for a
have.
while, right?
Yeah,
Um, so so I was in
it's
there
a
for a
serious.
while, and then I get out of the hospital. I'm recovering at home. Everything's fine. Like, not that long later, a couple weeks or whatever. So I end up getting really sick, and I'm like shaking, like trembling and shaking. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I've never had this symptom in my life, right? I've had colds and stuff. And Bethany takes my wife takes my temperature. She's like, oh, you have a fever. That's the first time I can ever remember having a fever, right?
Huh.
So it turns out I have the flu, and I'm like, man, it's so weird. And I'm like, and I told my wife, I said, you know what's funny is the whole time I was in there, they kept asking me if I wanted a flu shot, and I kept telling them no, right? And my wife's kind of quiet, and I go, why? What's up? And she goes, well, I didn't tell you this yet, but one of the times you were out of it, and you came in there, and they asked me if they should give you a flu shot, and I just told them yes. So it's not me like going, oh, I bet if I get the flu shot, I'll get the flu, right? Because I didn't
Yeah.
even know I had the flu shot. I had
Was
no
this
idea.
shortly afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what happened in my case is that like I had a flu reaction with the
Uh-huh.
same symptoms, but I think you're not a spreader, but you just had your body reacted because there's these same little pieces of little flu and what they do in vaccines is they add a little bit of this and a little bit of that to create
Right.
uh, a reaction of your of your immune system.
Right.
Because if they don't and your immune system doesn't react to it, it'll not make the antibodies it needs,
Yeah,
right?
they give you just a
And
little bit of the virus, so your antibodies build up to fight it off, right?
yeah, well, they
Yeah.
give you a bit, yeah, the damaged virus or a broken virus
Sure. Sure.
or like the one where they do the chicken eggs and but it's like this stuff that's called adjuvants they add that RFK Jr. said they got it. They went through the back channels of the government and got it so they don't have to tell you what's in these adjuvants that
Yeah.
create this immunological reaction.
Right.
And so that's what's maybe is like, can have negative consequences like heavy metals,
Right.
this kind of thing.
The bad kind of heavy metal.
The bad kind of heavy metal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The bad.
Uh,
The, so,
yeah. So yeah. So anyway, I thought it was a really funny story because I know people would always say that, but so
no, and weird. I'm like, and here's the thing, right? And right, I kind of like, okay, so I probably was this. They said you're having the flu, but if I'm
mhm.
having the same symptoms as the flu, isn't
Right.
that the flu?
Yeah.
Like, because it sucked. I wanted to die. I haven't felt like that in a long time.
Right.
Where I'm just like, oh, this guy, the dog was inside all day, and I finally took her for a walk at night, and like, I just
Yeah.
took her up to the church up here. We have an LDS church up at the top of the hill,
Okay.
and I just laid on the cement, and let her wander around for a while. It was still warm, and I'm having
Uh,
chills,
yeah,
and
see.
but I do believe that like now I probably won't be a vector for some old person in the hospital,
Okay.
because of that. But if I had to do it again, I would have not done it
Right.
because that sucked. I
Yeah.
potentially lost a day of work, but the surf knocked out the manta ray trip anyway. So
Oh, okay. So as far as like pretty left leaning, like you said in the Bay Area, and then you kind of were telling me a little bit about what started to shift, like was it COVID specifically that
I
started to
think
make you shift the
okay,
other direction?
this is what I remember actually. I can here's I do have its timeline.
Okay.
Like I remember getting to school and it was like 9/11, yeah.
Mm,
And that happened. I remember the day I walked into that day, September 11th, 2001, got off the oh, forget what line it is. It drops off right in front of San Francisco State, and then walked. And then I just all these people are leaving with this dazed look on their eyes. And this one like this blonde girl came up to me, just like made eye contact and was like, the World Trade Center, you know. And then I went to class and we're like, hey, we're canceling class. You know what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And then you know, now I'm in like San Francisco State in the theater department, and we're having all these discussions. And like I remember this one girl, Sochi. She was a classic kind of like Mexican, I think more Mexican born national,
Hmm.
but with like super like probably communists, you know, kind of like as kids often are when they're.
Yeah.
I think kids are, you know, like we have a, you know, when you're young, that's why they always grab the youth, right? Like when
Right.
Mao like took over, they grab the youth because,
Yes.
or now with like the transgender stuff, it's
Hmm.
like, you know, I'm trying to have this conversation with my like 20 something year old like housemates, and you know, they're like, no, this is just reality. This is this, you know. But her thing was just like, you know, was very against the war in Iraq that was developing, was starting to happen.
Hmm.
And what I said to myself was like, and I said this like, well, you know, it's like this is my government. I have to, you know, they're they're here. They're watching. You know, they're here to take care of this country and to watch out for us. And you know, weapons of mass destruction. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you know what happens is like it's all a lie.
Yeah.
It's all a lie. It's all
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, and I'm like,
Yeah.
those Republicans are a bunch of freaking liars.
Right.
You know, and then
Yeah.
we get to COVID, and it's like you know, I was like, you know, President Trump to my mind at the time, and still I listen to him like, oh my God, it's rolling my eyes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it plays, and he's a, you know, he's just funny, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, oh my God, is this the conduct befitting of a president?
Right.
He's a troll. He's a troll. He's a troll,
Totally.
and he's
Yeah.
like, you know, black belt troll,
Right.
and not afraid to say anything, and but like during COVID, it just like, oh God, he's so horrible. He's so bad.
Hmm.
I felt like it was very divisive. The time was divisive. He was
Yeah.
divisive.
Yeah.
He likes like, you know, he's altered his message because I think one of the things is maybe it's a benefit to him. It's like he's not married to any of these ideologies. He's just, oh, this is my base. Okay, let's just say things they like. And now he's
Right.
altered it a little bit. He's altered his message.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's I don't think he's committed. I don't think he has any ideology besides like his own, you
Right.
know, his own agenda
Yeah.
to answer to. But I think he's learned that like, oh, okay, that message didn't work. Let's oh, okay, we got, you know, RFK Jr., Augusta Milan. It's very different now. It's very different. It was so like that first like 100 days in office of his first term, you
Yeah.
know, it's just like all these, you know, all these people who are like, you know, trying to either the ones who were like totally offended by what he was doing and they're
Hmm.
like, I can't believe I'm in this, or
Right.
to the
Right.
ones that were like, you know, trying to like just butter themselves up with him
Right.
and
Right. Do you see a
say whatever.
difference between like the first 100 days of his first term to now? I know we're not at 100 days yet, but do you see a big
Yeah,
difference? Huge, right?
no, it's huge.
Yeah.
I won't lie, it's a little scary.
Okay.
It's a
In what
little
way?
scary.
How so?
Well, they're like saying they're taking constitutionality to the very edge.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you know, I listen to like news podcasts that specifically have like a left and right side to them,
Hmm.
you know, breaking points if you're
Hmm.
ever interested.
Yep.
And they're good. And then when they have their other people on, they're usually lined up with their left and right.
Yeah.
And then when you have people who are like sane and one on the left and one on the right having a conversation, you realize you don't have to have a shouting match and you can
Yes.
have difference of opinion. And this
Yes.
is what my opinion is. And well, you know, and they do get into it sometimes, you know, when they have their like editorials,
Hmm.
and it's not just like the, you know, what I think people have now we're getting into the revolution of creator controlled media,
Mm.
right? Where
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to be on CBS, right? Because before they literally had a tower. You know, they had a tower. You couldn't get on that station. They had the tower and
Right.
they had the power. You
Right.
know,
Right.
you couldn't get on the airwaves.
Hmm.
You know, it was easy to control and to censor and to control the message. And you can get into all that like after World War II and the deep state blob kind of thing you know, um, where it's like, how is CNN? It's like see, this is the new like I think Fox News did this thing where it's like, oh, we're just gonna be partisan. This fully full on just partisan,
Right.
and there's
Right.
no illusion about it.
Put your
And
cards on the
then
table, man.
yeah,
Why
and then
not?
they are, and then say, well, okay, no one's paying attention to us. We gotta kind of like MSNBC was the super liberal one. They had Rachel Maddow on,
Right.
but they're all just trying to make money
Sure.
ultimately, right? And
Sure.
that's the news terminology. If it bleeds, it leads, right?
Hmm.
If it doesn't make someone scared or angry, then it doesn't create attention. And when you're having mass media, which is really expensive,
Yeah.
you need a lot of people paying attention to one thing, then you need to make it like bleed and lead,
Right. Right.
where it's like, okay, like the show I listen to Breaking Point's kind of, that's probably a really small market of people, that want to particularly be interested in that, but it doesn't have to, it doesn't, it's the operating costs of that operation are very minimal,
Yeah.
I imagine,
Right. Right.
especially
Yeah.
with technology and new media and
Yeah.
they've put a lot of money into it, so like their little thing looks a little more newsy, looks a little more,
Hmm.
the lighting's better,
Right.
makeup's
Right.
a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. So they have a better budget. So what was it specifically with the COVID thing that made you like what
They're lying.
like you felt like the left was lying because you talked about how you felt like all the Republicans were lying before, and then when COVID
Yeah, yeah,
happened,
yeah,
okay,
and then no, it's like they're lying.
okay,
Someone's lying, and someone is lying for someone else.
mm,
You know,
right,
it's like the thing with the this pardon of Fauci, and he was doing the research that
yeah,
Obama made illegal and said, no, we can't do that because it's too dangerous.
the gain of
This gain of
function,
function
yeah,
research,
yeah,
which I found out is like, that's exactly the kind of research. I just knew I can't believe I've never heard this before. But Breaking Point actually had someone on, like who wrote a book about Lyme disease. Lyme
mm,
disease was gain of function research. Of course, my conspiracy theory friends is like, yeah, of course. Yeah, those are the same those were the German scientists we brought over. And he's all into this Nazi agenda thing,
right, right,
you know.
uh,
Um but yeah, Lyme disease is highly possibly like something created as like
yeah,
it's something that was intended to be a biological weapon.
right,
And now it's just another one of these immunological kind of crap storms we have to deal with now between like
yeah,
eczema and gastrointestinal issues people are having,
yep,
colitis,
yep,
you know, I
yeah.
mean,
So like, so you think they lied about obviously the origins of COVID in the beginning for sure, and then all that came out later. Like we got a lot more information about Wuhan and all that stuff after the
well, it did
fact.
originate in Wuhan.
It did or it didn't?
Yeah, it
Right.
did originate in Wuhan,
Right.
where they have a virology center
Yeah.
where they were doing research
That's
paid
what I
for
mean.
by the
Yeah.
NIH or
Right.
whoever.
Right.
And then there's this whole like economic thing where like they've made this thing like where the scientists in the NIH can patent these vaccines they make, and they make money back from
Mhm.
the pharmaceutical companies when they buy them off them. And that's why, and then now there's this economic incentive thing, and everyone's going vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. You need a vaccine for that
Mhm.
because someone's making money along the way, and now it's leaked
Yeah.
into the hospital world. So you need a vaccine. They just every time it's like, I'm in there. Oh, you're due for your vaccine.
Yeah.
But we live in a community here, it's a community hospital that's very like locals will just go religious purposes. They don't need that. You just fill
Oh,
the
and they
religious
don't question it
paperwork
at
in.
all. They just let them use that.
Yeah, yeah, for
Because there's people
school.
here that were trying to use that and they wouldn't let them use it.
Yeah, and I've bent over. I got all the vaccines. Um, I think there could be something with like, do children need that many vaccines all at
Right.
once?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and is that I don't know, but I don't know. I have to look at I've never looked at the
Yeah.
research.
What do you think about the myocarditis claims about with the vaccines? Do you think that's related at all, or do you think that's coincidence?
I think I was listening to this old English doctor. He was actually a nurse, and he became a doctor subsequently. And he was breaking down all the studies and like that were happening around COVID and the myocarditis thing. I think, I think aspects of like the COVID virus are like toxic, and so when you're introducing this piece of virus, there is a toxicity to it.
Hmm.
Like I guess it was like inflamed, but I think that the myocarditis caused was on par or less than what the COVID virus would do to you. And so there is that game you're playing when you're playing with virology and like these like you are going, oh, I'm trying to give my dog like a flea collar and I'm like studying it, and the EPA has approved this flea collar and it's like it doesn't have it's reasonable risks. Okay,
Hmm.
what's a reasonable risk? You know, how many dogs are dying from like different worms or infections they're getting from fleas
Yeah.
versus how many dogs, so like 25 someone articles, it's like 1,800 or 25 dogs died from wearing this flea collar, Seresto. It's like, well, how many millions had it? And then there was like, how many of those were like cheap Chinese knockoffs
Right.
that were
Right.
being sold on Amazon?
Yeah.
And um, so
That's kind of a different
they're,
analogy though, because like with like fleas are most likely not going to kill your dog, right?
they are a vector and
Okay.
they're disgusting.
Right. But I mean, my point is
And
like if you're talking about like the COVID vaccine,
yeah,
the thought was, you take this vaccine, it's gonna save millions of lives. So
yeah,
if a couple hundred people die because of this COVID vaccine, that's okay because the ends justify the means, and we're saving millions. We're sacrificing hundreds to save millions, kind of a deal, right?
yeah,
And I mean, at least that's what they're selling. I don't know. I'm not saying I buy that. I'm just saying that's what they're selling. And then you got to get into the idea of, like you were saying, about how many young people needed this vaccine, and that's when you see the myocarditis. That's when you're seeing these 18, 19-year-olds dropping dead on the football field, totally healthy, nothing wrong with them.
yeah,
And they say, well, I don't know what happened. And then they start kind of compiling this list. And it seems like the vast majority of the younger people that this is happening to have had the COVID vaccine. And kids die weird ways all the time, but there was like this massive jump in the
yeah,
number of out of the blue deaths of young 20 somethings that are in the prime of health, to where it made a lot of people go, is there something to this? To say, well, maybe we should have only been giving the vaccine to elderly people or people with comorbidities, or like people that would actually,
at risk.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but that's the way they painted COVID out in the
But
beginning
but
anyway. They
how are
made
you
it
going
sound
to
like
sell
everybody's at
vaccines doing
risk.
that?
Well, exactly, right, and that's what I'm saying. That's what's sick, right? Like you're
Yeah,
willing to sacrifice lives of these young people who has their whole lives ahead of them, so you can make a buck, and you have these devastated families who have lost their 19-year-old son when I mean, he didn't have anything wrong with him. He could have easily lived to
yeah,
be 95. So it's sad that people would stoop that low to make a buck.
yeah. I I would, well, there the mechanism has been in place for a long time that it created that situation,
Hmm.
and then you can get into whether it was planned or whatever. But I mean, it is suspicious. There's a lot of suspicious stuff
Hmm.
around it,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
you're going dark on me. Is
I
that
know.
me?
I've noticed that. No, it's my lighting. There we
Your
go.
lighting? Okay,
That's better.
it went into a darker.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on,
So it's
but
probably a bright background.
maybe.
Um, but just changing the white balance. But yeah, man. I mean, yeah, this is some weird stuff around the economics of the vaccines,
Hmm.
and I guess they can just they don't have to disclose who made the money, like doing that research, and
Right.
there's this whole thing where like they're only funding stuff for research they want to do, which is like stuff that like pharmaceutical companies want. Like no one makes
Yeah.
money on like chicken soup, except for
Right.
like organic chicken farmers, right?
Right. Right.
I feel like the chicken soup saved everything, or if just being a healthy, how much money is made by the fact we're like an unhealthy nation we're unhealthy because of like the the cheap uh calorie, fat rich processed foods we've been given,
Right.
and kind of been made addicted to,
Yeah.
and that was like a high comorbidity for COVID
Yeah.
was that. And you go to Africa and other countries, like they weren't having this, they weren't
Right.
having people crowding like, and now I'm in a hospital and I've talked to people who were there during COVID and they
Hmm.
were like in hazmat suits. People were dying. People
Right.
were, you have to remember people were dying from that first phase of it. Now,
Yes.
of course, as the thing like it bred down because like a virus doesn't have an intent. So what it's only if you can give it an intent. Its intent is to be transmissible and to spread, right? Because that makes
Right.
it more of it, right? And so what
Right.
happened was it combined with the cold because it was a coronavirus. It was a
Hmm.
cold, really,
Right.
and it turned into something like I don't know. It's got this weird. I guess like what was the last thing I heard about it? It had like some GI stuff, like you would get like nausea and vomiting, but it's not what it
Yeah.
was. It was
Right.
worse. Like that first go around of it was worse.
Yeah, and it was more attacking the lungs, right? Was the biggest issue in the
Yeah, it's
beginning.
attacking
Yeah.
the lungs in a way that yeah, it made yeah, you basically would go into like a respiratory distress
Right.
if you were so predisposed.
Yeah. So
It was,
do you think that they would go at, because some people hold this theory that they would go as low to be hospitals to be purposely killing people in order to make it look like there's more COVID deaths in order to continue to push out the vaccine, the fear factor. So oh, you're going to die unless you get this vaccine.
I don't know. I think that stuff's highly that's how could you get one hospital doing that?
Hmm.
But how do you get that's the problem with like conspiracy theories. It's like, like that old adage was like, one man can keep a secret if two of them are dead. It's
Right,
like
right.
the bigger the conspiracy gets, the harder it is to keep kind of
Yes.
like tamped down,
Yep,
And
yep.
so like how do you get a hospital, one hospital, two hospitals?
Hmm.
Who are the ones running this? Who are the ones changing these numbers?
Right.
I got a nurse friend who's like total conspiracy theorist and like
Hmm.
is like trying to get out of the med cert. She can't. She's trying to find something to do that makes her as much money,
Right.
but she's just tired of like taking vaccines and like
Yeah.
being in the hospital
Yeah.
setting, which I totally get because you're really part of just a larger industry.
Yeah.
This larger industry that's at its own machinations. They're still like
Hmm.
offering COVID vaccines, and it's almost like this like no one wants to admit it's like it just went away. We're not dealing with it anymore, but it's like, yeah, we were doing that. We didn't need to be. We're still offering you the COVID vaccine. The vaccine is like because the virus mutates so fast, like any vaccine you take is probably, you know, null, worthless by the time
Yeah.
you're getting it. It's already
Right.
changed,
Right.
because it takes like this long for you to get it out.
Yeah, but that fear
So,
aspect is still inside a lot of people, right? I
well,
mean,
you know what
maybe
they did in like I am in school with someone who was in Florida during that time.
okay.
And what they did was like what's his name? The governor there who ran for a second
DeSantis.
against Trump,
Yeah, Ron.
DeSantis.
Yeah.
He fired anyone who was putting out numbers. And they actually like who was like putting out actual COVID numbers because they were like everything's fine. Everything
Hmm.
business as usual, everything's fine. And um Florida's a great place to be right now. And we're open for business.
Right.
And he actually like some whistleblower lady like put out the actual numbers. They
Hmm.
like arrested her and raided her home. Um, and they were firing any. They were just like, okay, yeah, you don't want to do that. Boom, you're fired. You're a government employee. You're out of here.
Hmm.
And so I think different municipalities had different takes on it, but I don't know. I think the fear is mostly just national stuff. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this horrible pandemic, and that's when you can get into the conspiracy theory stuff. It's
Well,
like,
I mean, I see in my own town at least once a week, I'll see one person driving in their car by themselves wearing a mask,
yeah.
right? And I see that and I think, wow, that's like the
Well, that's
ultimate fear right there. They're just steeped in fear.
that person might just have like obsessive compulsive disorders.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, something's
germophobic.
going on. Yeah.
I put on a mask if I'm sick. I went to when I got this. I had to do a Costco run, and I did that with a mask
Yeah,
on.
because you don't want to spread it, right? But it's
Yeah,
it's it's the people that wear it because they think that it's going to protect them from getting sick, as opposed
yeah,
to preventing others from getting it from you,
yeah. Well,
right?
clearly, if you're doing it in your car, you're not like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, you're not being logical at this point,
Yeah.
you know.
But those
But
people, I think the fear is so deep with a lot of those people that they think that it's in the air,
yeah,
which means if they breathe even in their car by themselves, they're going to suck in that COVID virus
yeah.
and then
But
they're going to die.
would you say that person already had things they were afraid of, and then
Probably.
now this is the most
Yes.
recent thing?
I would
You know,
say
they probably
so.
already
Yeah.
had some underlying issue that they're like,
Right, right.
freaking out about, and now
Yeah.
this is it. It's like COVID or
Yeah, I don't
whatever it
think they're
is.
exactly emotionally stable, I wouldn't say, of a person that's going to
Yeah,
respond that way. But I know at the height of COVID and the first wave of it, I knew a lot of people personally that felt that way. They were literally scared. And I mean, to be honest with you, I was scared in the beginning too because of the way the media and the news was
oh yeah,
presenting it like, oh my gosh, this pandemic sweeping the nation and it's only a matter of time before it gets to you. And then you're seeing all these bodies piling up in New York and all this crazy stuff. And then you start hearing about people in my town getting it. And then you're like, oh crap, it's here. It's
yeah,
the end of the world. It's going to be like I Am Legend here pretty quick. We're just going to be
yeah.
walking
You're like,
around like five people still alive.
although I mean, I think I had a certain form of long COVID.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get it. I got it subsequent to getting back. Did I go say vaccinated? And then so that first, kind of, I think that first kind of like go around
Hmm.
where it first went out, it
Yeah.
was probably the worst form of COVID.
Oh, it
And
totally was.
I've known several people who like have like long-term issues.
Right.
Um, and after I got sick, it was weird. It wasn't like, anything clear, but I just felt down and
Hmm.
weak, not bouncing back, not having like stamina. Part of it's like, oh my, I am just getting older, you know.
Right. Right.
Um, but I kind of like, okay, I actually like started doing some stuff to like boost up my mitochondrial health because I heard like I was through different kind of like YouTube channels or podcasts I was listening to who were kind of talking about some of the effects. It's like you could have some like mitochondrial, which felt like what I felt like, right? Just like not quite there, your
Right.
gas tank is like can't fill up past a quarter tank,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
before I would go like jujitsu and go surf and then go to work. And if I tried that, I'd be at work and I'd just be like, oh, like I just couldn't function.
Right. Right.
And so I kind of like worked on that a little bit and I still take those.
Does that help?
Um,
Do you notice a
I
difference?
felt like it helped. I felt
Okay.
like it helped, and I felt like I take well first I took Glynac, glycine, and N-acetylcysteine, and then I added taurine with that. And
Hmm.
although my NP primary care provider says like, oh, okay, she asked some stuff around taurine if I had certain um, but these are things that like in the mitochondria mitochondria make like your basically make your energy, but they do a lot of other like complicated host of things. But basically, one of the important steps is making glutathione, which
Hmm.
lets everything else run. And then as you age and as like things happen, you make less of that, and then your mitochondria stop functioning as well because it's like the hole in the pathway. It's not getting past and going to the rest of the way. There's not
Yeah.
enough glutathione in there.
Right.
And what these are is like things that help there be more of that.
Okay.
And that actually like I at the time it's hard to relate now, but like I mean it's like I'm a bigger guy. I was being a little bit nimble and like I would like go surf. There's like some breaks where I get a hop out on rocks and stuff. And like one of those signs of when you're aging is like that you have a harder time like stepping down and putting your foot down on an object far down. You
Right.
know, you start losing that muscle control and that kind of that coordination. And I
Hmm.
was like doing it. I was feeling like a wobbly sick person. like, falling on these, and these are like, well, you don't want to fall on these rocks out here.
Right,
At this
right.
particular break, it's like, it's just, there's like one little flat area and the rest is like, Stitch City.
Ugh.
And so, oh God, I don't have that, like that, no, I just feel off and,
Hmm.
in my energy. And so it felt like it did help with my energy. And, and I got through that. Maybe it was just time too, time after, but it was like for months and I gained weight and maybe it was just because had gained weight and got COVID and then gained weight and
Yeah,
um, you know, you didn't know, but I felt like it's something a routine I still keep. And
right, right. That's good. But so do you think that like with when we talk about like the pharmaceutical, big pharma and that kind of stuff and all the lies and like our tax money's going to this research that we're not green lighting or anything, do you think that with the putting in of like RFK, to be running kind of that side of things, do you see that as a pretty
well,
awesome
that's a
development?
fox in the hen house. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's trying not to say, he's like in the, what's the judiciary committees or whatever they put him through, where
Hmm.
they like let all these
Oh
guys.
yeah, yeah. When they're
Yeah.
yeah,
And he's like, well, I know. And I mean, RFK came at the vaccine thing from being a lawyer so it's like it's hard to hold a lawyer, responsible for a position he held as, you know, representing a client,
hmm,
who's having, they were like suing multiple things. He was doing EPA stuff, and then he started doing the vaccine thing for the people that thought their kids were getting autism.
right,
There might be something to it. I'd like
right.
because it's like, they all have studies say that that's false. I'm like, okay, let me look at those studies,
Yes,
let me look at who paid for those studies,
that's the
you
research
know,
you have to do. You have to
yeah.
do the
But
research.
it's hard because like who pays for those studies?
Right,
You know,
right.
studies are expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
um,
yeah, but I mean, you look at the thing that gets me, and again, I don't know anything about all the research into whether or not the vaccines cause autism or any of that. But when you look at the time frame of them adding a bunch of new vaccines and the number of kids that are getting the number of vaccines they're getting to the rise in autism, you really can't ignore the timeline.
they correlate.
Yeah. Now it could be
Okay.
something totally different. It could be
Yeah.
something we're eating and something that we started eating more of during that time. I mean, who knows, but
Yeah.
something changed to where why is there so much more autism now than there used to be? Something
Yeah.
happened, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, and like they're kind of going like the pharmaceutical, medical science. Well, maybe it's like was unreported before, but
right.
no, this is like I feel like a new phenomenon,
Yes.
and it's yeah. One of my old coworkers, just one kid. He might have had another one by now, but he's just yeah, he had autism, and
Hmm.
it's definitely is. Oh, here's the one I was listening to is about was it Ethiopians or not Haitians? It was, I think, someone from East Africa, like a group of people from East Africa were coming here. I think Ethiopians.
Hmm.
And then, boom, right when they got here, autism
Within their families, you mean?
within their families, and they'd never seen it before,
Interesting.
you know?
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, man, I worked in like this hippie organic vegan cafe, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and more, all those, I don't know who was doing their research, whether their energy crystal gurus were like telling them this is wrong, but like more and more stuff, like, oh, the science is backing up the stuff they're already thinking, like the thing with
Mm.
microplastics and like, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh God, I gotta get everything plastic out of my system.
Right.
But it's almost impossible because we have so much plastic in the world now.
Yeah.
Um, but like they're finding, I read an article and they're finding like 5 grams of plastic in brains of certain people,
Oh, wow.
like microplastics, because it's like
That's not good.
you think like it just gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Like, it just breaks down and starts to be inhaled and starts to be just, and so it's
Yeah.
getting, the thing is like if it's in your brain, it's going through the blood brain barrier, which is like this super kind of like all these little cells that are meant to like only let just what's needed in, you
Right.
know,
Right.
because to protect it, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that, again, I hope that something like RFK, because he's talking about taking on the, not just big pharma, but also the, the health, like the food organ. What's the word I'm trying to say? The FDA,
FDA.
yeah, the FDA,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And, because those regulations have gotten so lax where it's like, oh, we can allow a little bit of this, just a little bit of this. It's only going to
Yeah.
kill maybe 1,000 people. It's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal to the family members of those 1,000 people who died needlessly because of your negligence. Why don't you, instead of trying to mass produce so much that you become a multi-billionaire, why don't you instead focus on making a product that's not going to kill people? you know?
That's expensive. Sounds expensive,
Yeah,
bro.
well, it is, right. You're going to lose
Yeah.
money, right? But why don't you just be a
Well,
millionaire? What's wrong with just being a
that's
millionaire?
that's where government is supposed to be this intermediary, that like watches out, right?
Right.
And makes these rules. But
Hmm.
it's kind of, you know, it's less and less performing that function.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are these? It's like what RFK calls it agency capture, where it's
Hmm.
like the ones who are in these agencies like work for the agents, like work for those, like they get out of the agencies and then they go work for big pharma
Right.
afterwards.
Right.
But I think like how do we get a nation to like stop eating crap food? I think that's what it comes down to for that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
We have to
Like,
find a way to make good tasting or food that's good for you taste really good
well, how
because
about
that's what it
subsidizing
is.
like subsidizing but also we come from like, people used to know how to cook and make their own food. And now it's
That's
like
true.
everyone goes, once you go outside of your own home,
Hmm.
we're at like a cost analysis ratio for
Right.
the middleman, right? And it's
Yeah.
like whether it's McDonald's, and I live in Hawaii where it's like, you know, I don't it's food so expensive to go out, it's expensive to go out. And
Yeah.
like I'm so used to it, but like I don't know what it's like for you, but like to go get a burrito is $18.
Dang. That better be
Yeah.
like a burrito the size of my
No,
head,
no,
man.
it's a small little burrito. So,
Ah,
but there's high diabetes here because a lot of the locals will do eat like it's like, a lot of whether it's like carbonated sugary beverages or like brown sugar and everything, brown sugar and soy
yeah.
sauce is like the solution for all meals, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So there's that. And then, Um, but like, yeah, people forgot how to like prepare their own food, and then it's like it feels expensive and it's more work. And now when you're living in a situation where like everyone in the family is working, because like
Yeah.
the wages are so low, like you don't have like a housewife or a house husband, whoever
Mm,
it is, I don't care, to
yeah.
like cook and make the meals, so you're gonna go
Right.
out, and then now you're in a, you know, you're a cost analysis situation. you
Yes.
know. And you go out,
Yeah, dude.
what are you gonna eat? What are you gonna eat?
Yes. Yeah,
What's cheap? You know,
two
fast food?
income household destroyed us. It just did. I mean, people can yell all they want about the patriarchy and the nuclear family and all this kind of stuff, but you know what? It was better then. The kids were being raised by their parents. They weren't like latchkey kids that just
Yeah.
had to eat microwave dinners all the time and they saw their parents maybe an hour a day. They weren't being raised by TV and electronics and internet and all this stuff. But that's the way it is now because you have to work, you have to have a two income household most of the time in order to make ends meet, especially if you have kids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And also like I think back in the day, like there was more like you lived in a communal family situation. And so with the breakdown of that, now you've got like these nuclear families, right? That was part of after World War II, this concept of the nuclear family, they were selling it, it's like, okay, you get all these GIs back from the war. And it was a conscientious thing. It's like, oh, well, we don't want them to go back into like these inner cities, you know, and like, we want to create this. They created the concept of suburbia,
Right.
and we built a lot of houses, and you created this like, I remember like they're watching it's not a documentary I watched. It's like the nuclear family. It's a husband, a wife, a brother, sister. And it's like before people were like living in like kind of like a communal, so like the grandparents or aunties. And
Hmm.
that's the way it is here on this island. I've known people who literally were raised by not their parents because their parents had a messed up situation, and someone just kind of took them in,
Yeah.
and just like, and there's no formal like, like, they didn't officially adopt, but the kid just was raised with them, and they're always helping out, and it's like it's a very old world kind of just family structure here.
Right.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's better. I mean, I know that's not a popular
it's more
view.
I think it's more natural.
Yes.
I think it's more
Right.
natural.
There's a reason
You
for
know?
it. And if
Yeah,
we get off all of our soapboxes about rights and who's this and that's not fair and
yeah.
equality and equity and realize what works best,
Do you
you
listen to any
know?
George Peterson? No,
Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I love
yeah,
Jordan
yeah,
Peterson.
yeah. He
Yeah,
got
he's
me.
great.
I mean, he's a little like he's so angry now, just a
Yeah.
little much.
It's that
But
it's that carnivore diet he's on, man. He needs to eat some veggies or something.
maybe, yeah, and I think also just being, having the system try to end him over
Yeah.
and over again,
Yep.
just
Yep.
made him angry.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I he was one of the I bought his like 12 rules for life,
Oh
you
nice.
know, clean
Nice.
my room, It's just I think we're all soft,
Hmm.
we're soft, pampered, narcissistic kind of group of people. And it's like, okay, what's your responsibility for?
Yeah.
What's your, what are you making in life? What are you
Right.
making yourself?
Yeah.
And like people don't want those because when you are soft and you think everything should be built around you and you
Hmm.
inherently have like, oh, something special about me and it should just come to me. I think there's a lot of that in our country in
Yeah.
general.
Entitlement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
entitlement. That's a
Hmm.
great word for it. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then they're like, when things don't come for you, then you get this like, I mean, ultimately we're all like, you know, you're responsible for making the best of your situation. And that's work, that's your life's work,
Right.
and
Yeah. We keep
um,
breeding them that way too. Like we just like as a whole, we just keep having more kids, and then and I think that all started with the idea of when I have kids, I'm going to give them everything I didn't have. Because I want
yeah,
them to have a better life. But in the payoff with that is that now the kids don't know, they don't learn the lessons we learned by not having everything handed to us. They
how
get
to be
entitled.
creative and like, yeah,
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 and they think they're
yeah,
victim. They have a victimhood mentality, and they think that the world owes them something. It's like, no, you got to work for stuff if you want it. It's like, no, I should just get
yeah,
it for free because I'm alive, therefore I deserve it. It's like, no, you don't. It's terrible. Mm.
yeah. It's a yeah, it's like kind of my thing right now, just like, but it's not like that here. It's a very
Hmm.
working man culture here in Hawaii.
Yeah, I like that.
And they actually like, I think it's so funny because like Filipinos on the mainland, they're very into education and basically like, oh, you should become a nurse, you should do that. They
Hmm.
love being nurses, because it makes sense because the pathway is much shorter. I mean, being a doctor is a really long pathway, and you have to like 10, 12
Oh
years
yeah,
before you're actually
yeah.
making money, right?
And then you're paying off your
And
school
really like
debts.
if yeah, and then you're paying off the school debt, which is
Yeah,
accumulated, and then
right.
you're like another 10, 12 years.
Hmm.
But um here it's like it's funny because like the Filipinos kind of like they kind of like philosophically kind of go along with the local kind of culture. There's a
Hmm.
lot of Filipinos here, and they're very more like working man. They like to drive a big truck, and they want to, do construction, and you can make a good living here. That's what happened. Well, the economy here is based around a lot of it is based around like the fact that you have millionaire homes.
Mm.
So you have a lot of millionaire homes, and so you have this kind of like weird economy around that. So you
Hmm.
can be a window washer and have like a good living being a window washer.
Nice,
Because
nice.
every time these guys come home to their third home on the Big Island for Christmas, like their whole thing that faces the Mauna Ocean front is all like koa wood, um, these sliding doors with
Yeah,
giant mirrors. They're all like 10
yeah.
feet tall, and they need to be clean, and they've been
Right.
just collecting salt. And I have a friend that does that and
Nice.
has a good living. But yeah, that's why here they will like if there's someone who's like undercutting them on construction, like and they don't have paperwork, they don't get reported here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like Elon Musk and Doge and everything he's supposedly um, revealing? He's draining the swamp, right? He's revealing that all these people have been lying for years and cheating us and everything else, supposedly.
You know what? I mean, I think that's what people voted for was
Hmm.
a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, watch out. You know what happens when there's a wrecking ball.
Hmm.
But at the same time, my one question is well, once if they're able to do all this without congressional oversight, without, what happens when the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that.
Right.
And I think their idea is to actually just push it until the Supreme Court says no,
Yeah.
and see how much they can do.
Hmm.
But will they, that's the thing with dictatorship, right? And that's always I feel like the threat with Trump is like,
Hmm.
will he be a dictator? Will he just like say, okay, well, we don't need elections anymore because
Yeah.
I'm the best president, and
Yeah.
why should we go anywhere else? And
I can picture him saying that.
yeah, yeah, clearly
But
I'm the best.
yeah, but do you think he would go that far? Like, do you think he would?
If I think now January 6th was like, I think a lot of that was like drummed up and
Yeah.
like fomented by it's some what do you call it? Just like undercover FBI guys who were like who are I'm like, were they trying to make this happen?
Right.
But I think what is required in any dictatorship is required that you gain the power of the military,
Hmm.
right? And so I think at one point during the end, he tried to put some guy in charge who was like a Trumpian person.
Hmm.
And I think if he could have gotten away with it, I think he probably would have gotten away with like turning over the election. Now you can get into the whole thing whether or not the election was, that's a whole separate
Yeah, that's a whole
conversation.
separate thing. But I mean, I personally even question whether or not that's what he was trying to do on January 6th. I mean, I don't. I know a lot of people they focus in on certain things like stand by and stand down and like some of these stuff, but they ignore all the times he said peaceful, 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 peaceful. Like, so I think he
Uh-huh.
was encouraging a
So,
protest, right?
uh-huh.
But I'm not. I don't think that he was attempting. I don't think that he wanted all of his followers to flood the Capitol, overthrow the government, and say, "Screw you guys, we don't care if you voted for Biden. We're going to put Trump in there anyway." I don't think that was
Well,
Trump's plan.
they were trying to stop whatever that process, that little
Yeah,
kind of like,
right.
the
They might
ritual
have
kind of
been.
like voting of the votes of the electoral
Sure.
votes and all that stuff. They
Yeah.
were really trying to stop that from happening, right?
But was Trump behind that? I guess is the question. There's no doubt in my mind those psychopaths with the Viking helmets were doing
Yeah.
exactly that. But the question is, were they doing so because Trump told them to, or Trump put them up to it, or were they just such diehard Trump guys that they were going to do something stupid like
Well,
they
where
did
did
on
they get the
January
idea
6th?
from? The
Well, I
Viking
mean,
guy with a Viking hat really doesn't know that much about the political system to have come up
well,
with that idea.
no,
So
but
this idea was being circulated.
well, but he knows that his guy lost, and he knows that on
Yeah.
January 6th is where that becomes finalized.
Certify it. Yeah.
So if he's a psycho nut job, he's going to go in and say, "All right, what can I do to stop this?" Right? Like I think all those guys are nuts. I think they were all crazy psychos. I just don't know if I believe Trump was behind it. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know if he's behind it.
Hmm.
I think he was like, hey, I think, it's like his communication style is very gangster.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, if you decide to do this
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
might be all right. You want to
Yeah.
do this thing, stop there.
Hmm.
But I'm not saying you should do that because that might be illegal.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I wouldn't say you should do that. But if you want to go down there on January 6th, we're having a big pizza party.
Right.
And, but in the end, it was like, it
So you
seemed
feel like
like
he was
kind of
kind of like
sad and foolish
you feel like he was kind of nudging him that way without making it so obvious that he was.
because that's what he's good at.
Okay.
That's the gangster kind of
Yeah.
like way he communicates. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying this
Right.
because I would be illegal for me to say this.
Right.
Big.
And I think I would be a little more willing to buy into that if the left didn't make such a big deal out of January 6th. Like, and I'm not saying January 6th was not a big deal, but when they're saying things like this day was just like the Holocaust, or this day was just like they're naming, or 9/11, right? This day was just like 9/11. I'm like, three people died on January 6th. One of them was a Trump protester. I mean, a Trump
Yeah.
supporter. Like,
Yeah.
how can you compare that to 6 million Jews dying or the thousands of people that died in the World Trade Center? Like, it doesn't. It just seems like you're
Yeah,
blowing it out of
well,
proportion.
that's the political grandstanding. It's just
And that's my
it's like
point.
so.
Yeah.
What's that? I want to get this shirt. I have ideas for shirts. I just want to get, and I wish I'm sure there's someone who just make a shirt, and I can just say the shirt say this, the shirt would be politicize everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's where we're at.
Yes.
And you just can't like it's just like it makes me nauseous at a certain
Hmm.
point. It's like
Hmm.
no one can talk real, like what's really going on, because they both the parties are just like I don't know, but it's different this time, and it's kind of scary because now
Hmm.
you've got an unelected person, like you got an unelected person like being given the keys to the castle and going in and like scrounging everything out.
You talking
Meanwhile,
about
though,
you
like
talking about Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Okay.
Like he's not elected. Like
Correct.
this is like, there's no judiciary committee where they go sit and they do the ritual of lambasting you with their
Right.
politicize everything remarks. What was it? Bernie Sanders was saying RFK. It's like, could you tell me if you want, did you or did you not say the rule? Say it. No, I say yes or no answer. Say yes or no answer. And I was like, they're all just doing that, like, it's just it's
Yeah.
theater. It's theater. Yeah.
It is, and
Theater.
it's ridiculous what they do in those
Yeah.
things. I don't even know why they still have those. What do they call
It's
that? The hearing or I forget what they call
it's a
those things.
hearing. I think it's a committee to like, I think at some point they can block they can have them blocked. Like,
Right.
this is all, and so this is what our government is. And part of what makes it so inefficient is that there's checks and balances on power,
Yes.
right? We have like the three,
Yeah.
high school, like social science or whatever,
Hmm.
social studies, and like the legislative, the judiciary, and
Yeah.
so like they can block if the Democrats would need like, to get some Republicans in on it to like block someone if they wanted to,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think that was I think that was like the side plan with what's the guy from Florida who was originally going to have one of these posts, the one with a really punchable face, and he like did a lot of cocaine and was smuggling the teenage girl around.
Was he a congressman?
Matt Gates.
Oh,
Matt
Matt
Gates.
Gates. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they put him up for a position,
Yeah.
but I think it was just so that they could have someone to say no to because he was about to be prosecuted. I
Right.
think because the story went that he got Trump alone on the plane and then had
Yeah.
a conversation with him. And the next thing is like, yeah, Matt Gates is going to be up for this whatever
Hmm.
position. It's not Secretary of State. It was something
Yeah. I don't remember what it
Attorney
was.
Maybe Attorney General, which was
Okay.
like,
Okay. Yeah.
let's put
Yeah.
that guy in charge of
Yeah. That
of
didn't
law
last
and
long.
order.
There was a
Um,
lot of
but I think
backlash
it
on
was
that.
like, but I think that was like the plan. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to get out of here before we have these meetings because it's not going to be good. So I'm just going to.
Right.
So how about I just quit because you nominate me, and then I'll be the sacrificial lamb, and then everyone will say no, and then they shot their wad on who they could like say no to,
Right.
because he wasn't. Yeah, he was up for like they were about to do like an investigative thing on him because of
Right.
yeah
Yeah, and I
basically
think
corruption.
he dropped out, I think, because of that. He knew he wasn't going to get in anyway. It's kind of like that when you resign before you're fired because you know you're going to be fired kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
like I'd rather
yeah.
resign. There's a little more dignity in
So he
resigning. So,
resigned so he could get this nomination,
hmm.
and then, but it really was they knew it was never going to happen. It
Right.
was just like I don't know,
Yeah.
just the distraction tactic, like
Yeah. Yeah. And
well, they only have so much outrage to vent. Like you will get Matt Gates, and then what? Then they won't have enough left for Tulsi Gabbard, and which
Yeah.
that's another fox in the henhouse too.
Oh,
Right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it seems like all of Trump's picks are really. I mean, most of them are. He's putting people in
yeah,
there. Even the guy he has running the ice guy, like running the deportation and all that, and people are like
Yeah.
criticizing because he seems so harsh. But I think a lot of America is like, look, we're tired of the babying of everything. It's like we either have
Yeah.
laws or we don't. Like we're going to enforce the laws, or we're just going to let people run all over us all the time, you know?
And you know what?
And
If you want to have like seasonal workers or workers come here, make those kind. I think that's the HB1B visa thing. Maybe that's what it'll
yeah,
get to, where
sure,
it's like, okay, and then let them go back home. They don't have to. They don't have to
right,
sneak across like
yes,
several dangerous borders,
right,
become raped, taken advantage of,
yep,
murdered along the
yep,
way,
yep,
and then we can do background checks, and
yeah,
then have the ones that we think are, you know,
yeah,
it, instead of like, who knows who, and then like, and that's horrible too because Trump had the whole border thing, so Biden went and said like, okay, I'm not going to do anything with the border because I
yeah,
don't want it to be seen as approving Trump,
yes.
and this is a massive problem.
And then look what
It's a
happened.
massive
Right.
problem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I'm so tired of they're still doing it now. They were doing it during Trump's first term where they keep saying things like Trump and the Republicans and the conservatives, they just hate immigration. They hate immigrants. They don't want anything to do with immigrants. They want to get rid of all the immigrants. And we're all going, "No. This country
legal
is
immigrants.
illegal immigrants. Yes. This
Yeah,
country is built on immigration. The
yeah,
entire country, everybody here, unless you're Native American, was an immigrant of some sort. Like your
yeah,
family, your ancestors came here at some point from somewhere else, right?
yeah.
So I'm so tired of that. And it's like, no,
Well, then
dude.
the way the left pushes it is like, yeah, well, if you think this way, then you're a racist.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the it's
Yes.
A or B. It's
Yes.
A or B. It's A or B. Are you a racist or do you want to let these people live here?
Yeah. And
You
that's
know?
what I'm saying. That's what they do in those hearings we're talking about. That's what they've become. And then the person starts to try to explain their answer and they say, no, 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 it's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Why are you a racist?
They're
And they
just
start
going for
saying,
a
well, I'm
soundbite.
not. No, no,
Yeah.
it's a yes or no question. Yes, you are is the only answer you can say.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa, wait a minute.
I was like, well,
How's
no, I'm
that?
not. Well, you think we should curb it? Therefore, you're a racist.
Right.
Should curb it. We should not
Exactly.
allow illegal immigration to happen.
Yes.
And I mean, some of it is a little bit like there's some xenophobia,
Yeah.
to it, I think.
Could
I
be.
think,
Could be.
for some people, but I think logic, but I don't think that's like representative of everyone. I think I don't feel comfortable with like an open border,
Right.
where like, you know, I mean, like China could be sneaking their criminals through it.
Sure. There has to
Um,
be, yeah, there has to be a process to where we do it the right way, you know?
yeah.
That way we keep our country safe. I don't care where you're coming from. You call me, well, it's all the Mexicans come in and you're racist against Mex. No, I just happen to live in California, and that's the biggest influx that we have is through the southern border of
Has there
Mexico.
been, have you seen a lot? Has there been an increase or
Oh yeah.
what have you seen? Okay.
Well,
Since
there's been an increase, and what there's also been an increase of since Trump actually since Trump was elected, not even it was even before he actually officially became president again. But I work at the library, and we're also a passport acceptance agency.
yeah,
So I've been doing that for a couple of years, being a passport acceptance agent. And in the last probably 4 months, there has been I mean, first of all, we're booked up for months on end, booked, which isn't
uh-huh,
like us because it's by appointment. And whenever we have to do, whenever we have a passport, somebody getting a passport that's a Spanish speaker only, we put a little SP by their name. That way we can have one of our bilingual passport agents do the appointment because you have to have them
yeah,
do an O, swear an O, sign a paper. It's a big deal. Like you have to make sure they understand what you're saying. Dude, we're booked right now all the way through like May, just booked out, and every single appointment, SP, 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 all of
yeah,
them, and every single one. I shouldn't say every single one. 9 out of 10 that I do in a week, it's always because you have to mark on the form whether you're because they're getting a passport for their child who was born here, right? But
yeah,
they have to mark for the parental information whether or not they are U.S. citizens. And I
yeah,
kid you not, dude, 9 out of 10 times in the last 2 months, it's always been a mom and a dad. Neither one of them are U.S. citizens. They mark no. But the
uh-huh,
child technically is because they were born here and they're getting a passport for the kid. And I
yeah,
kind of started asking some people who are in that world and kind of talking to these people about it.
The anchor babies.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they want to get a passport for their kid because exactly, because then they
Let's get
think,
water. I'm
yeah, go
missing
for
it.
it. Yeah. So they think that that's going to mean that they won't get deported because they can't deport the kid because the kid's a citizen, and they're not going to deport the parents without the kid because then who's going to take care of the kid, right? So that's kind of
Yeah.
like that's the mentality that's going into it. And I get it, right? I always try to put myself in someone's shoes. If I'm like, okay, I'm here illegally. I've lived here for 10 years illegally. I've made a home for myself here. I've made a name for myself. I'm working. Especially if I'm the kind of guy who's like, oh, I'm a good member of society. I'm not a criminal. I'm doing things the right way, other than being here illegally, but everything else I'm doing properly.
Yeah.
So now I'm scared because this Trump guy sounds, I mean, I liked Biden because Biden's like, well, whatever, we'll just let everybody in. We don't care. But now Trump's talking about deporting everybody. So I understand why they're afraid. I get it, you know? And I think there should be something done for those that are here illegally, that have been living here for a while illegally, but they're not causing any problems, right? They're
Yeah.
working, they're contributing to society. Let those people stay, but at the same time, put them through a program that is going to make them legal. You see what I'm saying? Like, let them do the legality, but at the same time, we need to cut the border off so no more keep coming in illegally, right? That should be
Yeah.
stopped right there. But then what do we do with the good people that are here already? You know, is kind of the question. And I think we should attempt to let them stay while we help them go through the process of becoming citizens. But all the people that are criminals, all that stuff, yeah, deport them back. We don't want those kind of people here like they're causing problems, right? So,
Yeah.
and they're here illegally. So, yeah, let's get rid of those people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated because we like. I feel like there's this. This is happening um, like globally with all the like developed nations, is we're not having as many babies anymore,
Mm,
and so like
yeah.
China, it's already they're like it's called population collapse.
Hmm.
And right now, there's more. I listened to this guy named Peter Zion. He's like a geo-global strategist or something, but
Yeah.
he's big into demographics. But it's like you're having these demographic collapses in Europe, and the interesting thing with the United States is like we identify ourselves as an immigrant nation, so we can take in people and go like, okay, well, this is what it takes to be an American, and you do this oath, and then you do the paperwork. But like, let's say in Sweden, they've immigrated like their workers now are like a bunch of like people from East Africa and all these,
Hmm.
and they're never gonna blend in, right, by nature,
Right.
and
Right.
or the like Muslims in France, and so there's this whole identity thing because you have like a nation that's like, it does have like a national racial identity in a certain way, right?
Sure. Sure.
And now you've got like this other like, wow, it's a whole lot of people. What are those people doing? They're like, well, they're providing the services that we don't have like people for. Like no one wants to be like, I don't know, whatever it is, like,
Yeah.
selling hot dogs in the corner or
Right.
cleaning,
Okay.
probably like the janitorial work
Yeah. Like
or
the
farm
peon
work.
jobs, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, labor, low
Income.
skill labor. Let's
Yes.
call that low skill labor, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
like,
Grunt work.
um, yeah.
Hmm.
But and then, we're living in Santa Maria, so it's like, I had a Spanish teacher in Rigetti. I don't know if you had him. He kind of retired
That
after
uh
the old Mexican
Terry
guy.
yeah, what was his name?
Oh, I
Oh, old
forget.
Mexican guy. No, I had
Older Mexican guy.
dang it, what was the guy I had? I forgot his name. Are you who you oh, what's his
He's
name? Do you
old, but he
remember?
had a beard. But he was like he was a big like he was big in the Cesar Chavez activist days. He's kind of
Okay.
like he's one of those like disgruntled activists of the '70s, and like
Okay.
that didn't quite turn out the way he thought it would be. And he's in Santa Maria being a Spanish teacher. Kind
Right.
of like he's a character,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, they thought they could, they were talking about the Mexican farm laborers, and they went out and they tried to pick strawberries for for a day.
Oh, dude.
Could not, like we have to
Yeah.
get down there.
Yeah.
Helps when you're like 5'2", you're like
Dude,
closer to the ground.
you
But
know what? Jimmy, one time when we were in, I think we're still in high school, I think
Yeah.
his mom got him. He had a job where he worked in the celery fields for like a week. And I remember him. He came over one time after one of his shifts. He still had his machete thing and everything. And he told me, he's like, dude, that I have been, I'm dead. He goes, that is the hardest work I've ever done in my whole life. Like
Yeah.
it's brutal work, dude. I mean that those guys. I'm like
In the
they.
sun, the heat of the day,
Yes,
going. Yeah.
yes. I can't
And it's
imagine the chiropractic problems that you're going to have after all. I mean, that's just I can't, dude. I can't even pull weeds for half an hour without feeling like I need to go to the chiropractor. And these people are out there for 8 hours, 10 hours a day,
yeah.
just chopping, cutting vegetables and all that stuff, dude. No way, man. That's gnarly.
But those jobs are probably going to be automated shortly. A lot of the
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're gonna having like robots do that.
Yes.
They can even
Yeah.
like, oh, what's the ripest strawberry? Kind of
Oh
got
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're getting there.
Yeah.
Um,
We're getting to that movie. What's that movie with Will Smith? I, Robot. We're getting to that point,
robot,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. We're gonna get to that point where it's gonna be like
we're
it's gonna
close.
get
Yeah,
crazy.
it's like which of these three things is going to be our doom? Is it
Yeah.
AI? Or
Yep.
like they're all competing for which is going to end us first.
Yeah.
AI, global warming, you know.
Yeah.
That'd be a good
Uh,
comedy movie where it's just
right.
like everything's destroying us. And
Yes.
they're
Yes.
like trying to like figure out which one's going to destroy us first.
Which one? Yeah.
What else is
Who's
doing it?
gonna win? Yeah.
Yeah. Social
Um,
media.
real quick, just based on something you said a minute ago, do you think, like back to Trump again, one of the biggest like critiques of him from a lot of people is that he's racist. Do you think he's racist?
I mean, I think he's self-serving,
Okay.
you know? Um, I don't think if he's intrinsically he's not racist like in the way like because like what was that guy for the he owned the Clippers for years? He was like
Oh yeah.
and he got like eventually it all came out like the stuff he was doing. And
Yeah.
there's also he's like almost a little like gay for black dudes, you
Right.
know, and, like
Right.
you know, because I remember hearing some comments like, look at all those black bodies, you know, in the locker room. And like, what was that guy's name? And he had
I
like
don't remember.
he had a biracial like girlfriend, like you
Yeah.
know, with like a boob job and stuff. And like,
Right.
you
Right.
know, she's the one that kind of like put him on Front Street with his remarks.
Yeah.
But wait, that guy's psychology is probably really,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, you know, oh, black people are horrible. But he just can't. He put himself in a position where he's just surrounded by them, and
Yeah.
yeah.
He
But
was denying the fact that he loved him so much. Like he just couldn't handle it.
yeah,
So he was
yeah, he
lying about it.
could,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
And
deceiving
I
himself.
don't think Trump's like that. You know,
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think. You know, I think he's probably employed a lot of illegal workers because they work cheaper and they're
Right.
probably harder.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Sure.
because
And
they're
that
not entitled.
well that's part of the thing that comes out, right? And people say that he's racist, and then they show all these, they have these interviews with all of these black people that work for him, right? Like
Yeah.
that he's employed either at his hotels or
What do they say?
they say he's great. They
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I'm
No,
sure they
I think
find
he's
some
good
that
at
don't,
relating
but
to people.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So I mean, I think racist is you can call Trump a lot of things. I don't think racist is one of them personally. I mean,
I think there's an element of it to this whole like, you know, the ICE thing,
yeah,
because I think there's an element to like the deep MAGA world, Trump world that is like a little, I'll call it xenophobic, you know?
hmm
And like, you know, my friend who's straight from South Dakota, she's a nurse and like, I'm not gonna say her name, but she's like, you know, it's now in like conspiracy theory things. And it's like a little remark. We were talking and then she's like talking about the stuff that's on the news. And she's like, we're talking about the whole Haitians eating the cats
Oh,
thing,
right, right,
you know, which is also like totally like blown out of proportion.
right.
And it's just like, just something viral to take advantage of for a political thing,
Which
right?
Harris knew what she was doing when she said what she said in the debate, and
Oh,
that's when Trump
Kamala
said
said,
that. Yeah,
oh, what did she say? What did she
well,
say?
because she started talking about size of attendance at rallies, at Trump rallies.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she knew. They told. I know for a fact. I shouldn't say for a fact. I'm like almost positive, just based on what I know of all that they told her, you got to mention his crowd size because that's going to bring him out, and he's going to start defending himself, and he's going to say stupid, idiotic things, and he's going to look like a buffoon. And she did it, and sure enough, he said that, and then he started talking about the Haitians eating the pets, and then she's over there with a big grin on her face. Everybody's laughing at him. That becomes the whole viral clip of the whole debate.
Didn't do any more.
No,
it's like,
that was it.
You know, Trump does what the heck he wants to do,
Yes.
and he's like, no one ever has gone, yeah, who needs these debates?
Right.
Like,
right.
This never happened.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's been like this format. It's like old format, like the whole
Yeah.
debate format, anyways. Like this, like
Right.
antiquated thing.
Right.
But,
Right.
and yeah, no more debates after that because she kind of was able to get under her skin. Maybe it was the whole black woman thing, but she honestly I think just like speaking in general wasn't her forte, but maybe being a sassy, like speaking in the long format journalistic interview thing was just not,
right.
Like something she was particularly strong at.
Right.
But
I know,
like a sassy kind of like talkbacker, like she got the better of him that day. But then he said, "Oh well, I'm not going to fight on that battleground."
But but see, is that really? So I look at that too. Like I watch a lot of debates, whether it's religious issues or political issues, whatever it is, right? Because I like that kind of stuff. But I'm so tired of people thinking that, oh, that guy won the debate because he talked over the other guy. I'm getting dark again. He talked over the other guy and said something and didn't let the other guy talk. And it was like a mic drop moment. It's, oh, he won the debate, right? No, he didn't win the debate. And I go, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because you talked about how Kamala's good at the sass. And you go back to her debate with Mike Pence back in 2020. And what was the whole takeaway from that? Excuse me, I was talking, she says to Pence. And the world just like, oh, she shut him down. Did you hear what she said? Oh, you go, girlfriend. Oh, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but what did she even say anything at all? Did she rebuke or refute what he was saying? No.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have an answer for that. So yeah, she can head shake and say sassy stuff, but what good does that do anybody? It doesn't do anybody anything other than the people that are rallying and are, yeah, she showed him.
Yeah.
What did she show him? Exactly. What's better off now than it was? Yes, it doesn't matter.
So having have like a non-critically thinking populace.
Yes.
But,
yes.
Let's get back to the cats though.
Yeah, eating cats.
Because that wasn't like one of my classmates like mentioned it, and she's like, kind of, I think your parents are from Ukraine. Like they moved out here a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's been here in Hawaii most of her life. But she's very deeply like a specific religious. She's not like Russian Orthodox. She's like this boarding, like I don't know, like a more of a Episcopal or something kind of church and conservative. And then that's the first time I heard about the cats thing.
Yeah.
And the Haitians. And like, so it is in these talk groups of this deep right kind of thing, this deep, like, where it's like, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that. And, and so then my friend, the nurse who went kind of like deep conspiracy theory after COVID, like we were having this conversation. She was coming over, we were talking about maybe going for a surf, but she said like, they just, there's just, I was kind of like pushing back on what she was saying. And there's just, what is it? It's like, it's a way of phrasing it. It's like, we're just sharing this nation with people who don't share our values. Or something like that. Like they're doing things like that, and that's not what we do in this country. Yeah. And I'm like, ho, 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 ho. Who's we? And who are you talking about? Who is this we you're making up right now? Right. Because like, I guarantee you 150 years ago, when I don't like if you were like in an Italian, like, well, maybe not. If you're in a deep dark, people eat different things. But like that was part of the thing when we had the soldiers come back from World War II, right? And if you watch any World War II movie, right, it's like it's about this American conglomerate of people coming together. You got the guy from the Bronx, the guy from the Midwest, and they're all working together, right? That's part of the what happened, maybe the mythology, but also what happened. And they are, and then after that, we got to like, I think part of the thought pattern about like suburbia and the nuclear family and moving people away from the cities, right? Into this basically manifest destiny portion too. Like we're like, okay, there's all this country here that we really haven't, capitalized on, literally, right? Because it's
Right.
like it could be we could have farms, we could have this, um, and to move them out because they were like, if they went, I think part of the conversation was if they go back to the cities, they're going to be back there, kind of like raising pigs in the street, kind of like just doing things like they did in the old country, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, like it's just like, if you like watch like The Godfather 2, or they're like in the
Hmm.
Italian neighborhood, you just see that kind of that grime and the dirt and the
Right.
horses
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to like move everyone out. So it's always like this, like, you're like the prisoner of like the now and like your version of like what do we do? What did we do? What did your people do when they came here?
Hmm.
But it's not, maybe someone ate a cat. I'm Filipino, you know, and you know, I
Yeah.
I may have been, I know like I heard dog tastes good.
Yeah.
But just the black dogs.
Yes.
Openness at the black dog.
Yes. Because you're
Black
racist
dog.
against dogs.
Huh?
Because you
No,
have
the black ones are
you did.
they're made, yeah, they don't have personalities
Right.
like the other dogs. They're just to
Yeah.
me.
And I don't think there's an issue with eating cats and dogs. Me personally, I don't think there's an issue with that. I think, because people in India think we're satanic because we eat cow, right? That's their
Yeah,
sacred animal. So, I mean, it's a
yeah.
cultural thing, and I get it. But if people's pets are going missing, that's when it becomes a problem because, like, well, that's my family member
Yeah,
you're eating.
I
That's
think that
not,
was like blown out of proportion. It was like
oh, it
some
totally
lady,
was.
yeah.
It totally
And then the
was.
lady was actually like, she felt really bad because she's like a left-wing lesbian
Yeah.
who made this social media comment. And
Yes.
like
Yes.
I can't believe this went viral. She's like,
Right. So it did
um,
get from what I understand though it did get blown out of proportion because Trump said
yeah,
it. People on the right were touting it for a couple days or whatever, right? That was they made it a big thing. But
yeah,
I also don't think it's true to go the exact opposite direction and say, yeah, but it never happened at all, right? Because I
yeah.
think there is
But if
some
you,
evidence that it was happening.
okay, but if
So,
you look at the whole picture of that, like,
mhm,
of that town. So that was a town that was facing depopulation
mhm,
because all the all the white people left.
right.
So it had like no one wanted to work in what I forget what the industry is there. There's some kind of industry, I think maybe poultry or something like
I think it's
that.
cats. I think it was cats.
The cat herding. Yeah, the cat herding industry.
Yeah.
And so like, you know,
Uh,
and so like because you know what? No one wanted to make like $12 an hour
right.
or whatever it was at the chicken egg factory,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And who you gonna find? And then you got like, okay, here's,
Mhm.
however happened, whatever like weird political thing that brought the Haitian refugees here.
Mhm.
And that's also goes under the whole aspect of like politicize everything because like the Democrats were doing that to be political about something to like have some agenda, like whatever. Well, how
Yeah.
they picked that town, I don't know.
Mhm.
But there was also like a benefit to that town.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
again, like low skill workers that were needed for that job that other people didn't want, you know?
Right.
And yeah, a couple cats,
Yeah.
Um, a cat, sometimes I just I have a so I'm in Hawaii. I have a little pistol crossbow for chickens.
Oh yeah.
For roosters,
Okay.
because they're just annoying.
Yes.
I mean, once you get one in the neighborhood, they like, I got a guy over here raising some chickens,
Yeah.
and they'll kind of come over to like, and they kind of, and so you just got to gut them down because they'll,
Are they
yeah,
wild?
yeah, they're wild. They just kind of like,
Okay.
and they're always getting whacked. They're up in like whatever, they're up in some place where no one's kind of controlling them, and then
Hmm.
then someone will move like into town, and they won't last long. Someone will whack them up.
Do they eat them?
Pepper like, I suppose you could. I never have.
You just shoot them and leave them there?
Like, I just shoot them, and then yeah, but we have mongoose here.
Oh,
They were
nice.
brought. They were brought. It's one of those like kind of dumb, things like dumb things white settlers do, and they're like, oh, or could they say it's the Portuguese brought them, and there's a whole joke here about the Portuguese not being smart. You go like, oh, Portuguese, how many Portuguese you take to put in a light bulb? It's like kind of like that here, but it's just like a joke. It's like kind of a love. It's loving. It's a loving joke.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but someone brought the mongoose to control the rats without thinking that, because the rats were kind of like didn't have any predators.
Right.
But then like, yeah, just so it's like no one thought like, well, the mongoose are daytime animals and the rats are nighttime animals, and so they don't really mess with each other.
Right.
Um, and
So
so
then they
now we
started eating
have,
the chickens.
but like I killed, like for instance, I did get one. It was up in the tree out in front of my house. He'd been kind of roaming the neighborhood for a while, and I was
Hmm.
getting up to go to like my clinicals at 5:30 in the morning, and I heard the little this little chicken loud rooster up in the tree in front of my house. And I got my pistol and I shot it, and then the dog Pepper the dog got it, and then it was dead. And then I had to go to class, and I left it in the yard.
Hmm.
By the time I got back home, the chicken was gone.
Oh, really?
These little mongoose, they're like this big. Their bodies are like that big.
Yeah.
So vicious. They
Dude,
dragged that chicken off. Or someone, maybe one of the neighbors came and got it. I don't know.
yeah, made up some chicken nuggets or something, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Do the mongoose ever do they ever attack people?
No.
Okay.
Like, but I was trying to catch a cat that I kind of adopted and it got out.
Hmm.
It was kind of like a semi-feral cat that was like living in the parking lot of the hotel I worked at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And figured out how to get out of my house. And then I would put a live trap out for it. And all I caught were mongoose. And once you get
Oh,
them in a
wow.
cage, they're like, oh, woof, you don't want to mess with them.
Do they just go
They're
nuts
just
in there?
they're like little, yeah, they're very fierce. They just show
Yeah.
they just do this, screech at you.
Do
And
they
they'll fight
kill
each
each
other out
other?
here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do they
They
kill each
fight with
other?
territories on each other, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how much the killing they do, but they fight for territory,
Okay.
because there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow. Cool, man. All right, we're gonna head into some spiritual waters now. Do you need a break? Are you good?
I got water, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll plow into it then. So I know you mentioned towards the beginning. I wrote this down. I might be saying this wrong. Did you say imperialist Buddhist?
Empirical.
Empirical Buddhist. Okay.
Empirical.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, like EM or IM?
Empirical.
Empirical.
Empirical. Which
Okay.
means like scientific. Means like, oh, evidence-based,
Okay. Okay, cool.
right?
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
So like, I mean, if you like look at Buddha, I mean, the religion has become other things, right? There's like
Hmm.
different religions, different like, you have Zen, and then you have like Tibetan Buddhism, and they have
Hmm.
all these basically like have links like Buddhism with like an animistic culture, would have all these like other spirits and stuff.
Hmm.
But like at the true heart of Buddhism was like an empirical process of like getting quiet and meditating. And if you like the story of Buddha,
Yeah, I read
if it's
Siddhartha.
helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. Herman
Yeah.
Hesse, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like he was like, trying all these like different avenues of like, okay, ascetism, where you're like denial of the body, and then like this, and he came from being like a prince where he had everything given to him. And then, but then he's like, well, I have to like see what is. And so he just sat and like, and so I've done this meditation, and I don't really like practice this on a regular basis,
Hmm.
but it's called Vipassana.
Hmm.
And the way it's done is like it's different. It's groups, but the group I did it with was I watched a movie in San Francisco at one of those little art house movies. Oh, I miss those. I'd love to get one here. Like you could go to where they just like show some random stuff,
Yeah.
that comes through. Because all I hear it's all like AMC theaters, and they play the same like three movies. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and it's Hawaii, it's all you got. And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
usually, but every once in a while they'll do like Studio Ghibli night or something like that.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, they did that the hair and the last one he did, the Miyazaki.
I haven't seen that one.
But yeah, no, it's pretty good. It's like long. It's long. It's like, it seems like this
Yeah.
is my life's work kind of like it's like it was long.
I don't. I try to watch. So my wife's Japanese, so
Oh, okay,
she's
okay.
brought up my kids on Studio Ghibli and like all Totoro and all those ones, and I just sit there like this, like Like what the
Look at it.
heck? Like what is happening? Like what do we got a cat bus and then we got these floater things going and then this thing and I'm just like lost. And my kids
Yeah.
and my wife are like, well, you don't have to understand every bit. It's just a good movie. I'm like, no, I need to understand something. Like I got to have some
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
clarity in order to enjoy a movie, you know?
Some of
So,
them are like, yeah, more kiddie, and then the other one's a little more adult themed. Like, I think I got into it with Princess Mononoke, so I had a whole
okay.
environmentalist kind of like
I haven't seen
aspect
that
to
one
it.
either. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe if they're getting older, well, they're what how old are they now? They're probably
My
past that
kids,
age. Yeah.
my youngest is 15. My
Okay.
oldest is 26. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Um. Yeah, but that's more like, it's nice because it's got a female heroine, so you got
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
she's been raised by wolves, by the wolf spirits,
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah, but it's got a
Okay.
little more like solid themes that you can get a hold of as an adult. Like there's this
Right.
industrial group that are like mining and kind of destroying things because they're getting metals so they can make weapons and
Yeah.
but then there's all these like spirit and like these pigs, these boar spirits are like running around, they're angry, and the wolf spirit, it's pretty. And then there's the spirit of the forest, man. It's the spirit of the forest, and it's bomb. It's bomb.
Okay.
A little too
Now,
much.
but do you, when you watch stuff like that, do you feel like that lines up with your own spiritual beliefs or not so much?
Um, I don't know about, but that one is about what does it like? Okay, do I? So Japan's culture is like it's animistic culture,
Hmm.
and so they've combined like I think Shinto.
Yeah.
Your wife would know, yeah.
Hmm.
And so like there's all these spirits, this river has a spirit, this has a spirit. So like, I mean, if it's true or not, does the poetry of it have to be true? I have to be, does the poetry of it require the actual thing to be true for the poetry of it to like work,
No,
for the
not at all.
symbolism to work? Yeah. So it's
Right.
like, so just because the movie is like entertaining doesn't mean I have to think
Right.
that that river has a river spirit.
Right.
But that's the thing is like when you're watching a movie, you're kind of like asking to be deported into another, not deported, but
Transported.
transported.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know ice involved here, but being transported to this
Yeah.
world that has its own kind of rules, and you're like,
Right.
okay, that's the rule of this world. You're like, what do you call that in theater? We call that the um
Escapism.
oh, it's not escapism. It's oh God, my brain is so non-functional. It's like it's the foregoing of like you're just gonna accept this of reality,
Hmm.
and you get transported to this reality. You just like let that one like whatever you think is real. It's
Yeah.
like you're buying into this reality because you want to be part of the story, and
Right.
that we're kind of set up that way. We're made to understand stories.
Yeah.
Like we get things as stories.
Right.
And that's helpful in my learning because sometimes I just turn things into stories to like
Yeah.
because it's better than like memorizing, you know.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so yeah, like so the yeah, Studio Ghibli, but back to Buddhism.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did a 10-day meditation with Vipassana, and it's a silent retreat.
Okay.
And so this is like and like the old school, like the old ones you can sit with us for. But this group was like it's like this old Indian guy who was raised in Bali, Indonesia.
Hmm.
And like, in Indonesia, you've got like Chinese business people and Indian business. I mean, they're still Indian or Chinese, but they've been part of that country for a long time, kind of thing.
Right.
So he was like raised in Bali, but like Indian, and then was having some sort of, I think, health issue,
Hmm.
and then did this Vipassana course, and so now he's like this old man that sounds very wise. He talks like this, and then like the whole class, like the 10-day sit was like two people who were, Caucasian, middle-aged, a man and a woman. And then you have like two campuses. You have the male, you separate men and women,
Right.
and then you just silent meditate. And what you do is like the first 3 days you focus on the tip of your nose and the air going by. And then after that,
For how many days?
3 days.
3 days.
3 days with no
You,
talking. You
eh,
go a little crazy.
did you do this?
Yeah, yeah,
You actually
yeah.
did
Only
this?
once. Only
Were you by
once.
yourself or were you with other
No,
people
no.
doing it?
I mean, with the group that was doing it,
Okay. But
but
you
no
don't
one I
talk to
knew.
anybody.
I
You just,
just signed up. I just signed up and showed up.
okay.
I got a ride in San Francisco from some people. There was like a little, you know,
Okay.
chat page for that or something, however people did it in the 2000s,
Yeah.
back in the olden days. And
So you spent 3 days focusing on your own nose.
on the nose, the tip of my nose, and and then like what happens? You get distracted, you start thinking of things, and you're like,
Well, I would get
"What's the
cross-eyed.
point of this?" Huh?
That would make me cross-eyed. I think I'd be permanently
Oh,
cross-eyed after 3 days of that.
no, you're the actual sensation of it. Don't look at your nose.
Oh,
You're gonna feel it. So the whole point,
so you
so like,
close your eyes and you envision the tip of your nose.
yeah,
Is that
you
what you
can
mean?
close your eyes, or you can keep it
Okay.
in soft focus or
Okay.
whatever, and then
Gotcha.
you sit there. And if you can't handle, that's what after my legs would hurt from sitting in the floor.
Mm.
But then, um, yeah, 3 days of that. That's the Anapana meditation, and then after 3 days of doing that, you shift your gaze to like outside of that focus, that little spot, and then you start to, oh, what does it feel like when you're really quiet and you haven't spoken
Hmm.
and you've stilled your mind and maybe you're a little less distractible right now. You're the continual running of your thoughts, the the images, the stories, the dramas that you're playing out, which, I can't imagine like how much more of that we have now than maybe someone did like, 3,000 years ago. You
Distraction, you
know?
mean? Oh yeah,
Yeah, distraction and
big
the
time.
inability to like
Yeah.
focus and like, but and then you switch to this, like then you start scanning your body. So that's why it's empirical, right? It's just like, okay, what can I observe? I think that was Buddha's process,
Okay.
according to this. It's like, what is happening? What actually is real? I don't know if
Right.
a God is real. I don't know if this, like, this forest spirit is real,
Hmm.
but I know that I am conscious and aware.
Okay.
And my thoughts, are they real? Well, no, not really. Because
Right.
every time I get distracted from that thought and then pull myself back,
Yeah.
where's that thought? It just went away, and
Yeah.
I'm here in my body.
So what is
And
real
so,
then? As you went through that, did you come away with anything to you that is real?
um, well, I guess like my like Satori moment with that was like, I think on the third day they say, okay, on a certain day they say, okay, we're gonna do a hard sit, and we're gonna ask you not to get up and to sit through it, and not to do any of these things. You get up to go to the bathroom and do that. Just commit yourself. You signed up for this. And meanwhile, this is all like a DVD recording of this old Indian guy with his wife sitting there.
Okay.
So he's
Yeah.
like, this dumpy kind of like, you know, toad-looking Indian guy with like a big kind of barrel like belly and like skinny arms, and
Yeah.
he's just like talking like this.
Okay.
Focus on your breath. In the breath. Out the breath. Like for days, right?
Wow.
And it's all recorded. It's all like on a DVD. You just have
Yeah.
every day you go in there and it's all like, you know, it's all a system. You just like, and after a while, like you're scanning your body, and then like on the hard sit, we're like, okay, don't try not to get up, try not to sit through this, and and it's weird because you like think like if it was just a live person, you think they were talking like something I was doing, but it's like it's just on a recording. It's just and I'm like, oh, okay. And I sat there, and then like I had this pain in my knee while I was sitting, like it just started to hurt on my knee,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, all right, don't think about that. Okay, just scan, and then it just started to hurt more and more and more.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
like, oh, it just started hurting and hurting, and I'm just like, oh God, I gotta get. And it was like really painful. It was like this
Yeah.
giant pain, and I was like, no, that, go, no, get away from it. Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, trying to block it off,
Mind
and
over
then
matter.
yeah, just keep going, and it just got bigger and bigger, and it just became more painful. And it's like I was consumed with pain. I was consumed. I'm like sitting there
Gosh.
in a chair, and then like I'm like there's a drill in my knee, like just like this ringing out, and then it's just like it's at the end, and then I just like and then I like put my attention on it, and then like I don't know if it was based on instruction, or there might have been some instruction around it. It's like there is a pain. What is that pain? What is the nature of that pain?
Yeah.
If you really went there, there's a lot of things with pain is like us running away from pain.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we have a reaction to get away from pain.
Hmm.
That's a lot of our behavior is based on like, this phenomenon, I think.
Yeah.
And then when I really like all of a sudden, like I just put my attention on it, and then I realize it's like all of a sudden, like it's not here, it's not there, it's right there, and it's right there in the context of it, and it's this tiny little blip in a whole universe of my body, like my body,
Really?
but I'm just focusing on it.
Yeah.
I'm just all my attention is on it. I'm trying not to think about it, but it's like my whole like being was consumed with this pain in my knee,
Hmm.
and now it's like gone, or it's like this tiny little thing. It's inconsequential
Yeah.
in the scheme of things, and it's just, and I realized like that's my whole life. My whole mental apparatus has been like focusing on these pains, these things that annoy me or bug me, and make me go into tirades, like internal conversations where I'm like, I
Hmm.
can't believe that guy did that. He insulted me like that, or whatever it is. And I'm not like, I still don't do that. I actually went through just with school, went through another just breakthrough on that end where just like, um, yeah, where I feel much better, less self-involved.
Hmm.
But, yeah, that was my thing with that was like, and
So,
so
so I'm sorry. So
that's
when
the
you,
empirical portion.
okay, so when you went through all of that and you had this experience where you were having the pain, and you got to this point where you were almost able to kind of rise above the pain and it wasn't as big of a deal, right?
Uh-huh.
So have you been able to like is that something that is that like a tool that you picked up during that to where like now if you ever hurt yourself or if you're ever get a
Well,
headache or you have any kind of pain, are you able to transcend to that place where the pain isn't as bad?
no, no. So this wasn't like some sort of like monk, like doing like they light themselves on fire and they can meditate past it.
Yeah,
They're still sitting there.
right.
It's not
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
It was more that like I was so focused on the pain because I was trying to avoid it
Hmm.
that I wouldn't look at it. And then when I actually looked
Oh.
at it and investigated what is giving me pain,
Hmm.
that in the grand scheme of things is very tiny.
Okay.
It's a tiny little sensorial blip, you
Hmm.
know, of like everything that was going on. And
Right.
like if you actually do sit like for a 10-day meditation, you realize that your mind is like, when we're babies and we're born, we're like this total like we're just aware of too much. And like a
Hmm.
part of the process of learning to be a human being is like learning what to focus on. We find faces, and what we start doing is we start conforming reality to what's functional,
Hmm.
you know? And so in a way, like doing that is like, oh wait, while all this has been going on, like I'm also like just, and there's another stage of the process where you have to graduate to,
Hmm.
where you actually go internal and you start trying to sense what's inside your body. I
Yeah.
actually ran into a guy that I worked at the vegan place, and he was a regular customer. And while he was on Vipassana, he discovered like there was, I don't know what level he was, we didn't get into that, but he sensed his cancer.
Oh, wow.
I forget what it was, what organ it was, something in the GI or something in the bowel, or
Hmm.
like the, stomach, like, stomach, kidney, something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, but then like I think it's empirical because it's like what is and what isn't. Like, oh wait, the continual movie storyboard that's playing inside my head isn't real. It might be helpful,
Right.
but if I can get past the things that aren't helpful, you know,
Right.
um,
Do you think reality is the right word to use with that though? Like, do you like in other words, the things that you discovered through that meditation, would you consider that to be the reality of it, or almost
well,
like
this is
you
the
go,
only reality that you have.
okay,
Yeah, because like your reality is what else do you have? If you start going, I think that was if all if this story going on in my head isn't necessarily real. It's like
Yeah.
this now maybe a highly functioning story, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but what I am a I take it on faith, at least in part, that I'm in a body and I sense what's going on in the body,
Right.
right? And that's real. That's like, or it, you know what? Actually, it's not. It's like, the Indians would say it's all illusory.
Right.
I know when you get to physicists and they talk about we're built to process reality in a certain way. We're like this,
Mhm.
there is no this, you know, your desk is mostly empty space, but it's
Right.
not helpful for you to think about it that way,
Right.
right? It doesn't help you like, find food in the jungle to think
Right.
of everything as empty space.
Yeah. And I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying when I talk about reality. Do you think a person's reality could be false? Or to you, does reality equal truth, or are the two different things? Or like, am I making sense? I'm not sure if my question's making sense. Like when you talk about reality, is that something that's true, or just kind of like a true to you kind of thing? Like my
Um,
reality might contradict your reality, but we're both right because that's true to you and mine is true to me. Therefore, they're both true.
um, I don't know. In the context of this, I'm not saying any of this is like the truth or a truth. It's more like a tool,
Hmm.
and um, I think like what's to be had from that meditation is one stillness, focus, um, being able to like move back. Oh, okay, my attention's over here. Let's bring it back to over here.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
um, being someone with ADHD, I had trouble. I've always had
Yeah.
trouble with that.
So it's a tool that can be used to the end of like for the purpose of making your life better. Would you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a functional tool, and I think
Okay.
probably if you get to like the other levels of what's going on, they might have some other. But here's the thing: they don't. The thing is non-denominational. There's no pictures of Buddha. The most
Right.
religious thing they got going on is this brass bell that they. It's just like like what you'd think of like in a humble bell on a string that at
Hmm.
4 a.m. it's time to wake up, and they walk through and they ring the bell, bong, bong, and yeah, I mean, so like, a lot of people like use meditation and don't bring like a certain religious aspect to it. So I don't know
Hmm.
if this answers the question of what's my spiritual belief. I think, yeah, we're all like, I think, yeah, we're just like in this sensorial thought bubble that is imagining itself to be the center of the world.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily true. And although at the same time it is true. You are you, You're you and you have your body and your life circumstances. And that's I think is, like I think valuable for people. Because I think I've done this in life where it's just I'm always thinking about what other people have,
Right.
And you get caught up it's like, maybe that's the entitlement thing or like the, it's like, well, that person was born with this. Well, you know what? You don't know what struggles they have. Like person that, grew up like, in a super rich family and they don't really have a home. They just go from place to place because they're living on the Campbell's fortune.
Hmm.
That person, I've met some of those people and they're alcoholics and they come in, they buy it around a bar and they, like,
Yeah.
and then they go off and they come back 6 months later and do it
Right.
again. Like,
Right.
like, but you are you and
Hmm.
you are in your like body and you have your work to do.
Sure.
And what is, you're responsible for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a spiritual belief,
Yeah.
but
No, I think it is. I think that you're right. I mean, we all have our own experiences. I mean, there's no two people on this planet that are exactly alike in even
yeah,
looks, in personality, in experience, in upbringing, right? All these things are what mold and shape the people that we become.
yeah.
Um, I do. I'll get more to this in a minute, but because I have another thing I want to ask you. But I personally think that there is a truth that I would call the truth, and I think that like transcends all of our thoughts and experiences. Like I think we can have all that stuff, but we can potentially be deceived. We could be believing the wrong thing, or believing the right thing. But I don't think our feelings or thoughts will dictate what that truth is, right? Because where some people say, well, whatever you believe is true, it becomes true. It is true.
Yeah.
To where I'm like, well, I don't know if I buy that, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to ask you, like with Buddhism, at least from what I know of Buddhism, is it's an atheistic religion, so it doesn't necessarily hold to belief in a god per se. So I guess for your own personal thought or belief, do you think there is a God, or do you think there isn't a God? Regardless at this point who the God is. I mean, it can be anything, but do you think there is a creator of us, or do you think
So
we just
I'll preamble that with this. Like
okay?
in Buddhism, there's like the Hinayana and the Mahayana. And I forget which one's which right now because it's been a while since I've thought about these things.
Hmm.
But I think the Maha, it's like the big boat and the little boat.
Okay.
And the big boat is like for the people because like ultimately, like not everyone's meant to be a monk and going up and like being in a temple and like, going through the refine, like, whatever it is, whatever that particular sect is. And so like the big boat, it's like, okay, those religions usually have like these little pictorial deities and
Hmm.
like these, they're very similar to like, praying to the Virgin Mary, right? They
Sure.
represent something. The
Yep.
Virgin Mary, what does it mean? Virgin Mary represents motherhood, Jesus represents sacrifice,
Hmm.
and I mean, probably some of those images you think of when you think of Jesus probably came from like other paintings where they were borrowing from like some other like like mythological you know things. It's because they're borrowing like I think all this stuff is recurrent in us too because we are human beings. We all go through the same processes and we have kind of similar things like like an idea of sacrifice, an idea of motherhood that's universal because we all had a mother,
Yeah. Yeah.
um and so that being said, then there's the little boat, and that's like the guys who kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna like be austere, and we're gonna be in in like we're gonna be meditating to achieve like pure bliss in the whatever, which that has this whole like, I was watching this thing about the monks in Thailand and how they're all corrupt, and
Oh
they're kind
yeah.
of like they're getting rich off of being monks, and there was like one like place that was like selling drugs
Oh
out of the
wow.
temple, and like
Wow.
and so now they've had like this like monk police,
Yeah.
so everything is corruptible. I mean, you could
Oh,
go to any like
absolutely.
like the Catholic Church and the you know you know um
Yeah, I would say all things man-made, all things religious are
yeah
corruptible, are absolutely
yeah
corruptible. But if there's a God and
yeah
he's the all-powerful being that created all of us, potentially, right, he could be incorruptible, right? Like it's possible he couldn't be corruptible if he's real and if he is.
yeah. For me it's like if it's helpful to have a concept of God, but
Mhm.
I also like after like what little I know of like what they find in physics and like what it actually is happening in the
Mhm.
universe, like like multiple dimensions, um, what happens before it, like whatever that being is that is controlling all of that
Mhm.
is so beyond my like limited human comprehension,
Right.
you know?
Right. I would hope so.
Yeah, yeah. No, but that's the thing is I think sometimes we we try to imagine our God is as petty as us,
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
but then you like if you go like to the Greek gods, right? And they're like a little petty,
Hmm.
you know? They're like a little like they're having little jealousies. They're very like personable, They're very like
Yeah.
they have like
Yeah.
they have like a psychological drama that's going on in their head.
Hmm.
I've heard the theory that it's like, oh, okay, once you had like gods that exhibited that, and then you had people who were kind of copied them. I don't know, but it's like,
Yeah.
then you go to this like, okay, well, we have And then I took a class called Imagery, Metaphor, and Symbolism, and he's talking about the concept of God in the Judaic church and how as the church got bigger and older, like it went from like this pastoral religion where like God was kind of walking around. If you look at the different copies, the different translations, they come from different ages.
Hmm.
And like, God is walking around with Adam in the garden. But then becomes more and more like this thing that's far out there that you need an intermediary for, again, a middleman, you
Hmm.
know, that you need to come to the priesthood and we can for you communicate with God, you know. Um,
Right, like
so
within
again,
Catholicism, you mean?
well, that was with the Judaic church, right? I think
Okay.
that's what Jesus was rampaging in the market for, right? Because they were selling God basically. They're just like, well, if you're a priest, you give me money, and then that was what was going on, I think, right? And then when he rampaged the marketplace
Yeah, they were buying and selling it within the temple, which is supposed to be
within the temple,
a holy place that's
yeah.
not for buying and
Also,
selling.
like it was buy. I think it's not just buying and selling, but also specifically the priests were buying
Hmm.
and selling their services as intermediaries
Right.
to God.
Well, I
I
mean,
think,
yeah, you look all through the
yeah,
Bible, Jesus is constantly at battle with the priests, right? He's
yeah,
he's at battle with the Jewish teachers of the day and all, religion. Like I don't consider myself religious at all. And
uh-huh,
people say, "Well, Ryan, aren't you a Christian?" Yeah. And they see it as like kind of a contradiction, like, well, Christianity is a religion. I said, yes, technically it is, but I look at like Jesus, I don't think he liked religion either. I think
yeah,
that was his
yeah,
biggest beef with the religious Jews of the day, where they were saying, "All right, we're going to take all this. Here's all the rules and regulations of the religion, and if you don't follow this to the T, and this is how we're attaining righteousness is by following all these rules and regulations." And
yeah,
Jesus is like, "No, you missed it. Like you missed the whole point, of the whole
yeah.
thing."
But
But
that's
like,
upsetting to the hierarchy,
of
right? That
course,
image
of
and
course,
might get you killed.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's why to me, it's important to like my whole quest is to find whatever the truth is, right? Like, I mean, I have beliefs right now that I hold to that I think are true, but at the same time, I'm open to being shown that they're not true, right? Like, I'm not gonna like be
yeah.
that guy who's like, no, stay away from me with evidence that contradicts my beliefs, because no, I want to continue to believe what I want. It's like, look, if I believe is false, I don't want it. Why do I want
You
something
know,
false?
here's something I thought about what might come up in this conversation
Okay.
is that like I think in particular like the Abrahamic religions like Judaism, Islam,
Hmm.
and Christianity
Yep.
have this concept that I think they confuse truth with historical fact, right? Like what happened or what this is. And then also like when you do that, I think you go, well, my story is right. This is
Hmm.
the right story. And now
Right.
you're starting to have like which that justified a whole lot of like in as you know empiricism spread with like the church and the colonial like what led to colonialism
Yeah.
like the church became a tool of like basically capitalism and of like making money in new markets and then converting new souls or whatever
Right.
but also like I think they were it was also like well when they went to these new places it was like what you're thinking is wrong. And now you have to give up all of that and then
Hmm.
think this. And there was this aspect of um, I guess it made sense if you think that, like that's what your belief system is,
Right.
you know. I would say that, yeah, I just feel like that doesn't exist as much in like, I think that's that kind of thought process has permeated a lot of the way like U.S. democracy is operated, right? It's kind of like the
Oh, yeah.
foundation of it, this thought process of like,
Yes.
you must be
Yeah.
democratized and you must do our
Right.
form of government. And
Right.
whereas China right now is going, hey, look, you want to do some business, you do your thing. You can
Hmm.
be a reliable party, you can pay back your debt.
Right.
And we're not, that's what they're trying to do when they're trying to like get off the dollar.
Hmm.
That's what like China and Russia and I think Brazil even are kind of like doing this kind of like, how can we get off the dollar? Because we can kind of control everything because we have, I don't know, it's beyond me how all this happens, but like the dollar
Yeah.
is like the standard of trade.
Sure.
And
But like,
um,
go back to what you said at the very beginning, where you said, "I think this might come in," and you said, "I think people confuse truth with."
historical fact.
Historical fact. So break that down for
They
me.
coincide, or I don't know if
Well,
that's necessarily the right way to say it,
well, yeah. So
but
kind of elaborate on that. Explain to me what you mean by that.
I think, well, right now, Israel has been, and I've been hearing all these like people I've like, known, and they're like Israel has taken it that nation was divinely given to them, and they've been wrongly taken away from it,
The land, you
and that
mean?
they're in the land,
Okay.
and they're in the right for taking it back,
Okay.
right? And they're operating, and then meanwhile they've like this religion or whatever it is, these people, are
The Palestinians.
the Palestinians. It's,
Okay.
it's a self-serving thing because it's weird because they start to sound a lot like the people who kicked them out of Germany,
Right.
and um
Well, so which
and
part of that would be historical fact versus truth? Like, are you saying that the in this scenario, the Israel's truth is that that land belongs to them, but historical
their
fact?
truth is that that land belongs to them. It was divinely
Okay.
given. They were kicked off, and they've been waiting for the day to have it back, and they made it
Okay.
happen. And
Okay.
this is, and
And historical
I
fact
guess,
doesn't line up with that. Is that what you're saying?
well, I mean, if that was true, right?
Hmm.
That means like my historic or my maybe this is not the right terms, right? If we can allow ourselves to slide off that term,
Sure.
historical fact.
Yeah.
But if my worldview says that this land is mine and that's justifiable because, these stories that I've had have
Hmm.
said this land is mine,
Right.
and then I'm justified in taking it back,
Hmm.
you know? And look, there's been all kinds of stuff done where people didn't need the justification, you know?
Right.
But
But let's say hypothetically, just for the sake of argument, do you think that if that is true, like let's say, I
uh,
assume you're referring to the Bible. The Bible says that Israel was given by God, right, to the Israelis, right? So if that was true, do you think that in that scenario they have a right to the land? Or is it that you're saying you don't think that's true, therefore they don't?
well, yeah, what's to stop everyone else from saying the same thing?
Well, then that's my point. That's
Now,
exactly
now
my point.
anyone can say that. My book says I can do this.
Correct. And that's
Yeah,
why it's that, and that's what I mean when I talk about truth. Like, what is
yeah,
truth? Because you're right. Dude, I don't even have to take an ancient book. I can write my own book. And in that
yeah.
book, I can say Ryan Hester gets to own the entire United States. It was given to him by God. And then I can use that and say, hey, everybody, get out of my face. I'm taking over. I'm conquering the United States because God said so. Right? But,
Exactly. And you
but
got
the,
you were in a cave and
yeah,
he brought these to you. You
sure.
didn't want anyone else around seeing this,
Right.
but
Yeah, but see that, but the main question that should be asked of me if I make that claim is my claim true? Right? And this is where it gets dicey because then you would be like, well, yeah, but Ryan, how can you actually prove anything like that? Right? How can you prove that my book is wrong or that his book is right or vice versa? Right? That's what matters.
well, I mean, might makes right. And the Israeli government, I'm not gonna say Jewish people, right? I'm gonna
Hmm.
say the Israeli government is doing something I think is like, but this was all set in place. This was all like it's just like it's been slowly happening ever since they went in there. And it happened like, after, World War II, and there was a
Oh, it's been going
Holocaust.
on for thousands of years. This land battle has been
Well,
happening forever.
yeah, I
I
think
mean,
what happened was it's funny. You heard that? What's that guy, Ben Shapiro?
yeah.
Yeah, that guy, he's like every time I see him, I want to stuff him in a locker. Like it's
Oh,
just
he got
something that
lots of that
happens
when
in
he
me.
was in school. Lots of people
I
do that to
bet.
him.
Yeah,
He talks
yeah.
about bullying a lot. Yeah, he's been bullied.
Oh, poor guy. Yeah, well, he's a bully now. But he's like doing the whole like breakdown of the history. And like, what it comes
Hmm.
down to was like the Romans around the time of Jesus, right?
Hmm.
The Romans eventually just said, "Hey, you guys, get out. You're annoying." And that's when the Jewish diaspora happened, right? And
Yeah,
the Romans said they kicked them out. They
yeah,
were there. they kick them out. And they're like,
Right.
send them packing. They have
Right.
someone else to deal with. And whoever is living there now or lived there when they start, it's like a totally different set of people. There's like influxes and outfluxes. I'm sure
Yeah,
it
well, this
happened.
kind of goes back to the whole immigration thing. I mean, and that's why there's two sides to that. I can look at it and say, well, there could be a truth that that land was given to the Jews by God. That could be true. But even if
Uh-huh.
it's true, you've had all this stuff happening for thousands of years, and now you have these people called the Palestinians that have been living there for how long? Does that mean that we should just uproot all of them and say, we don't care about you, you guys suck, get out of here, we're going to kill everybody because we're back in? No, in the
Yeah.
same way that in California, we shouldn't say, "Oh, you guys immigrated here illegally from Mexico, therefore you've been living here for 40 years and you have a family. We're just going to throw you all out of here because we're in the right." Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I mean by it gets dicey with that kind of stuff when you're dealing with people and lives and all of that, right? But
Yeah.
I think that there is a truth there in certain things. This is a very hard subject
Yeah.
right now because of everything that's happening over there right now. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening since the October 6th thing or October 7th thing and then all this stuff that's going on. It's like, whoa, and I know it's very controversial. People feel very passionate on either side of this. But I'm curious, and we're going to kind of leave the Israel talk for a quick sec. As far as kind of like back to the concept of creation and God, like in your kind of spiritual worldview, what is your explanation for us? Like what I would call creation, you might not call it that. You might call it something else. But I mean, like how did we all get here? That kind of a thing.
Um, we live in a vast, vast universe,
Hmm.
and of those, have you ever seen that thing with especially the new telescope or the Hubble, and they
Yeah.
like put it in a direction of
Yep.
like a piece of dark space,
Hmm.
and they amplify it and they amplify it, and then you find out it's just like it's not dark space, so there's something there,
Yeah.
and there's like the level, and so we live in this vast universe with like different planets, and I think whether or not something populated this planet, you can have arguments about it.
Yeah.
There is a timeline, and it is, I think, pretty corroborated by like observational kind of like, measurements. Like, it's like 5 billion years on this planet,
Oh, you
you
mean like
know,
age of the Earth kind of stuff? You mean?
age of the Earth,
Okay.
like, like when you do the math on like how the rate the universe is expanding, and but we're on this like, but I mean, I don't think that makes it any less miraculous because when you look at it, we're like this tiny little beautiful blue sphere
Hmm.
floating in the vastness of space,
Right.
where there's a way I've thought of it. It's like what is one of the laws of thermodynamics, and now like in physics, there's only like so many laws. There's like maybe three laws,
Yeah.
but one of them is the law of entropy.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what fights entropy?
What fights entropy? Because
Yeah,
entropy is
what
like
resist it? What actually, where
the
everything kind of slowly
yeah.
disorganizes into like
Right. Right.
life,
Life does?
life does. Because what life does is it tries to sustain itself, and it tries to build like a little like bubble where it can exist, and it got this little
Hmm.
DNA chromosome thing that can replicate where it can replicate itself, and at the same time change a little bit to get a little better at adapting to that environment. And over that process, over a billion, 2 billion years,
Hmm.
um, that hit, like now you've got different creatures that are existing, and you got creatures that are existing, and they're like photosynthesizers,
Hmm.
plants, and
Yep.
they're making energy out of the sunlight and converting it into like,
Yeah.
biomass, and then something's eating them, and then something's eating that, and now you've got this
Right.
competitive mechanism going on where you got
Hmm.
these all these beings are trying to get a little better at being in their environment, and um slowly they change. You call it evolution, whatever it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah.
They start to get better, being that they become more complex. So I was looking, I was like watching some videos about like a fish-like thing from a long, long time ago, and it was just like this one little flag. It was like maybe like 3 inches long, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a fish. Or like the cool thing where like it was like a video I watched where it's like crabs and how like or turtles where like before they were turtles, there was something that wasn't related to a turtle at all, but took on the same technique, you know?
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
oh, some cool. But it was like, oh yeah, that's a very effective. Being a crab and having a crab shape is very effective too. And there's other things that have
Hmm.
had the crab more fun, like, shape.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyway,
But do you
this has
think
happened
all of
over a long,
that,
long
like,
time.
if we're going to talk about like evolutionary or um, just that idea of that, do you think that that's happening unguided? Like in other words, do you think there's like intelligent design? Is that a theory that holds water for you, or do you kind of hold the something from nothing kind of viewpoint?
Um, I don't know.
Because like even if evolution's true, right,
Yeah,
an amoeba became a fish, and a fish to a
yeah.
lizard, and a lizard to chicken, that whole deal.
Uh-huh.
Like if we go back to as far back as we can go in that evolutionary process, I mean, whether it's an amoeba or it's the primordial soup or whatever we want to call it,
Yeah.
do you think that that could have just spontaneously arrived, or do you think it makes more sense to say something created that?
Um, I think it's an interesting thought. I don't really have an opinion on it.
Okay,
Doesn't really matter.
okay. Well, kind of does. I mean, whether or not
Why?
there's a God, that's kind of important. Because if God's real, that's kind of important, don't you think? If he's real.
Um, does he want me to think he's real?
Yeah,
Does
I
he
would
does
I
he
would think so.
need does he need me to think he's real? Is that
Need?
something?
No,
No?
not
Well, want
need.
is based on need.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I want to go to Disneyland tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
but I need food and water, right? Like I will
Yeah.
die without food and water. I won't die if I don't go to Disneyland tomorrow. Like there's needs and wants for sure. I think that's a
Yeah.
distinction. But I guess what I'm saying
So I
is
guess
like,
God, so then you're saying I'm being argumentative, I
yeah,
apologize.
please, yes.
But under that kind of framework, being the God, he kind of like me to think he's real. He doesn't need it because he's better than that.
No,
But when he's better, he's it's not something he doesn't need it to. I mean, he's God. He's all knowing, all being.
well, I guess the question is why would he need it? Like, are you saying like
Yeah,
if I stopped believing God existed, that somehow he would cease to exist, or if everybody on the planet stopped believing he existed, he would just go away?
yeah,
I don't think so. I mean, I think, like I said, if something's real and true, it's going to exist whether I believe it's true or not, right?
yeah.
Like,
Um,
like you and I are having a discussion right now. You are actually in Hawaii. Like that's a
yeah.
fact. You are in Hawaii. Now I can believe that you are in Detroit, but my belief
Uh-huh.
that you're in Detroit does not make you in Detroit, right? So my belief about where you are is false because you're not in Detroit, you're in Hawaii. See?
So can I ask you a question?
Yes, please do.
What's your at least? Oh, let's just back it up to like this. Like,
Mhm.
what's your evidence for that God created life?
So I would start with evidence. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't start with calling it God. I call it,
Yeah.
I would start with just intelligent design. And
Uh-huh.
my evidence, and I use evidence loosely because I don't think anything can be 100% proven. I don't care what you
Yeah, yeah.
believe or who you are, but I think that the evidence can be show probability, right? And
Uh-huh.
when I look at intelligent design, it's just that I don't see anything anywhere that is a that I look at that that makes sense to not have a creator. Like if I look at a building, like if me and you were standing in New York and we're looking at the Empire State Building, and I said, "Wow, that's amazing! Look how tall it is," and you said, "Yeah, it sure is," and I said, that just appeared there one day, like it's just some stone slammed into some glass and some mortar and all this stuff, and boom, there's this. Or
Yeah.
if I look at we're looking at a book, and I'm like, nobody wrote this. This just appeared. Yeah, it has an actual message in it, and it's telling a specific thing. It's saying the dog ate the ball, but it just happened randomly by chance. There was no intelligence behind it. There was no guidance, nothing. It just appeared like that. You would say to me, dude, you're a nutball. That makes no sense.
Uh-huh.
Of course that book had an author. Of course that building had a designer, an architect,
Okay.
a builder,
Well, now
right?
you're talking about a mechanism. You're talking about a mechanism that it happened, that the building
Well, I'm
happened.
just saying, like in general, but then if we look at all of
Yeah.
creation, I think you and I would both agree that humans, animals, plants, the atmosphere, everything is much more complex than a building or a book,
Yeah.
right? Yet we'll say, in an evolutionary standpoint, all of that just happened. It just
Yeah.
it out of no guidance, no
Well,
intelligence, nothing.
you could say that, but then like I can't personally do it, but can you comprehend 5 billion years? You
Can
know,
I
like
can
I mean,
can I
like what that
comprehend?
takes. Can you? I have no framework for it. What is 5 billion years to like do all that? Although, like, yeah, it's like I'm not saying it's not true,
Hmm.
but um, to a super like to a being that is all knowing and all powerful,
Right.
time might not mean anything. Time might
It
just be
no.
something for us. Yeah,
And
it doesn't
I that
matter
that is what I
that.
believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that these things happen, but they are happening because of a physical and physiological limits on like how fast things can change, you know?
Hmm.
Like like um yeah, like what was it? There's a thing where we were stuck in like I think they have fossils for this, but we were stuck in just like single cell. There's a conversation around bottlenecks. We might be in a bottleneck right now of like, say a planet is capable of life, and then
Hmm.
how far will that life go, and that can achieve bottlenecks, right?
Right.
And right now we're at one it's like whether we destroy ourselves or not, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
For multiple, we just talked about it. It'd be like AI, pollution, uh, global warming, um, nuclear war. You forget about like nuclear war is like you don't
Yeah,
even think about it anymore.
yeah, I think
I
we can
grew up in
destroy
it.
ourselves. I think we could totally
Yeah.
destroy ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
But there was a bottleneck where like they were stuck in like single cell organisms for like a long time, like hundreds of millions of years. Like, it
Sure.
just got to single cells and we couldn't get past there. That's just a long time just sitting there. And then all of a sudden now things are just happening faster. If you look at like human development, like
Right.
if you agree with those timelines, from Lucy to like, basically like the model that we exist with now has basically been around for 100,000 years.
Right.
And what did it do? And then also like what I see evidence for is like competing models coming out. Like if you look at human, you know, change and development,
Hmm.
humanoid, you like there was they find like little bones like in a cave in Sri Lanka or something, and they're like, it's totally different format. It didn't basically when our model came out, it basically killed all the other models and slightly incorporated Neanderthal based on DNA evidence, right?
Sure. And I would say that I don't I'm not one of those people that denies evolution completely. I mean, I think that microevolution is a
Yeah,
thing. It's studyable. We can see it. We see adaptation. We see Darwin's finches, the beaks are changing, that
yeah,
kind of thing. But macroevolution would say that bird used to be a completely different animal at some point in the evolutionary chain. And that's what I don't see any evidence of. I don't see any transitional fossil forms in the fossil record. I don't see a half bird, half lizard or anything like that. So when we talk about is the human bone structure different now than it was 200, 300, 400 years ago? I would say sure. But it's still a human, right?
mhm,
It's not a bird. It's not a turtle, right? It's still a human. And that's
yeah.
kind of where I don't hold to the macroevolution portion of it. And that's just because I haven't seen enough evidence to
What's the
show that.
macroevolution?
Well, macro would be like one species or one animal, for lack of a better term, turning into another animal, right? Like the
Oh, you're
idea
talking about
that,
missing links. This is a new way of saying missing links.
well, missing links is part of the issue. right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like that's what we talk about Lucy. For years they were saying Lucy was a missing link, but I mean in the last 10, 15 years, the and these aren't religious scientists, these are secular scientists, are saying no, she's not a missing link. She was a type of ape that they didn't know about before, a new species of ape that has long
Yeah.
gone extinct, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
these
the
evolutionary
storytelling.
biologists,
Someone's
they try to put that in because they're trying to, and I get it. They're trying to make sense of
story.
it. They're trying to make a model that fits the evolutionary process,
Yeah.
you know, no different than maybe me as a Christian is trying to look at evidence and try to say, okay, well, does the evidence fit my worldview or does it not? But me personally, I don't want to only take evidence that's going to support my worldview. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to do that. Like in other words, and I've said this a million times on the show, if as a Christian for me, if someone came and they were able to definitively show and they had a skeleton in a box and they were able to definitively show this is literally the bones of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Here they are. Here is his bones. There's no debate about it. They are absolutely his bones. Then I would abandon Christianity right now. I would walk out the
Yeah.
door and say, nope, it's false. Right?
I would say like why does it I guess that's the historical thing. We read this first story. It's like why
Mm-hmm.
does it if you receive meaning from it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's like a particular like like uh like just a niche or a particular like habit of the Abrahamic religions is that they got like, no, it has to be true. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I don't think like other like the Eastern religions wouldn't get tripped up on it. Like it would, it's like,
No, because it's more inclusive or yeah, inclusive, right? The Eastern religions are more liberal, for lack of a better word. They're more many ways to heaven kind of thing. Yet the
uh,
Abrahamic religions say there's only one God, right? So
yeah,
that's exclusive. That says you either believe in this one God or you're a heathen,
yeah. And I have an issue
right?
with that.
I know. I
I
did.
have
I
an
used to
issue with
too.
that.
I used to have an issue with it too. I hated it. I hated Christians up
Yeah,
until I
why
was
did
about
they make it to
24.
be right? Do you think there's something special about them? Is there something special about their way of
That
being?
there's
I mean, they're great
only
arguers. They're great arguers. The
yeah,
Jewish people are great arguers. That's why they
that's
make great
true.
lawyers.
That's
If
true.
you look at Shapiro, he's making
Yeah.
all these logical fallacies happen while he's describing the history, and that's why it's
Yeah.
our country. It's like,
Right.
why are other people responsible for what happened to you? Everyone else could go like, well, I my genetic history says I came from here, so I'm
Right.
gonna come. Like people, I was just watching a
Right.
video about like they're tracking like at a certain time. There's just like where they saw that the male genetic populace like shrunk by like I don't know to 25%, like
Hmm.
the variation in males. And it's because like they by that they theorizing about a bunch of stuff happening that's like 5,000 years ago. There was just a bunch of
Yeah.
tribes warring for who could be more physically dominant.
Mm.
And they took so like, what are in these pits where people are dead? It's like, males, children, old women, old males, but not young women. And there was just like, this is part of our history. I don't know why I brought this up, but it's like, well, I don't know. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so then maybe I'm one of those, from a genetic populace that was like, and I want my land back,
Right.
you know,
Right.
like I
Yeah.
want my land back.
Well, like the Native
You took
Americans
it
in
by
America, right?
force,
Yeah, they could say the same
but then,
thing.
you know what? Why Romans kicked them out?
Mm.
The people of Israel
Yeah.
out of Israel because they could.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they had the power to do it. And then
Right.
like, well, you're not playing
Right.
ball. And like that's also like, a particular facet of of Roman, like I was watching a thing on Lex Friedman and it was a history of Roman kind of
Hmm.
Roman history, and it was like they're just very practical. Okay, well we're gonna do this, we're gonna take you. We don't have to but if you mess with us, it's gonna be painful
Right.
because we have,
Right.
armies that surpass yours.
Yeah. And again, we could make the same claim for the Native Americans that lived here before Europe came over and conquered it.
Why
Right?
not?
You
That's a
say,
great
well,
example.
who owns the land? Well, who had the land to begin with? They did,
Yeah, well, I have a story saying
right? Yeah.
this is my land.
Well, right. I mean, but their story is right, right? That's historically accurate. They were here
Yeah,
first. Europe came over and conquered America and
yeah.
said,
But if you
it's
actually look at
ours.
like the prairie Indians at the time of like settlement,
Hmm.
they were all having wars with each other too. And those
Right.
populations are totally moving around. You can't
Correct.
even really tell because at a certain point, I was reading I didn't finish it. I'm ashamed, but I should finish it still. Somewhere in here. The Killers of the Flower Moon,
Oh yeah.
which that Scorsese movie took like a similar title, but it's like
Hmm.
the one about the Comanches.
Hmm.
But they had mastered. So one, you have the diseases of Europe coming.
Yeah.
And before, like, Columbus came, you weren't even there there's thoughts that there's like civilizations that have been existing there in the Mississippi Valley for a
Hmm.
long time and developed trade routes and this kind, like somewhat developed civilizations. But after like they had a 90% population collapse
Hmm.
before even like a white man ever showed up to there,
Yeah.
like it went through and like rampaged. So like there's thought that like the forest that was in the middle of the country, that was like this deep dark forest
Hmm.
of old growth that has all been like, it's like that wasn't even there at the time,
Mm.
that it was like something that came because like no one was farming anymore and the
Yeah.
trees just took over, and then 150 years later, 200 years later, people come to settle, and it's like, but now you have these other, where but the Comanches were like, they had gotten a hold of the Spanish horse and then developed like it into like their technology and their ability to use it as a weapon far surpassed everyone else, and they just started. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm necessarily against that. Like I think like if China came in tomorrow and
Mhm.
conquered America, then it would be China, right? It would
Yeah.
suck for
I
me.
hope not.
I hope not too. But I'm just saying I think that's the way our system is just set up. The conqueror gets the land, right? And that, like
I
you said, even
hope
before America came over, the Native Americans were doing it to each other too. They were
my
conquering their
hope
own
is
land.
yeah, my hope is that with these superpowers and the concept and reality of mutually assured destruction, that we just kind of keep having these proxy wars.
Hmm.
You ever heard that the video game Mech Wars,
Yeah,
where they just have basically it's basically proxy wars, and
right.
it's like you build these robots,
And
but the
there's no
robots consume
death.
so much resources.
Yes.
That's what the Cold War really was. You're just trying
Yeah.
to get the USSR to develop as many. You're like, oh, let's invent a space program because they
Hmm.
gotta like they can't be outshined, and so
Right.
they gotta use their resources, develop less into their infrastructure, and they
Right.
collapsed on themselves. It worked.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so hopefully we could just do that until we just come into
That'd be
this.
awesome, dude. Because then no death,
Yeah.
just and it'd be cool to watch. It'd be watching what's that movie? Pacific Rim. It'd be like watching
Yeah.
Pacific Rim. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's metaphorical or whatever, but maybe in a
Right.
realistic way, it'll just be these
Yeah.
proxy wars.
Yeah.
China has like really poor geography for being a world superpower.
Right. Right.
And they're having population collapse too.
Yeah. So I want to go back. Lastly, this will be our last thing. I just want to go back to
Okay.
something you said a minute ago about the Abrahamic religions, or whether, I guess in this case, we'll just say Christianity. I think the way you said it was, they will say, what, it has to be true, right? Well, it has to be true. I wouldn't word it that way myself as a Christian. I wouldn't say, well, I believe it because it has to be true, or there's no other way because it has to be true. But the question for me is it true? And is there a way to find out if it's true? And if there is, should I be, and that's true of any religious system or any belief system at all,
Yeah.
is it worthwhile for me to find that out? Right? Is that an important question? Like, if there's a God, should I care enough to know who he is, or who she is, or who it is, or like whatever it is, right? All these
Uh,
vast different belief systems out there. And I know for me, like I kind of shared a little briefly, but like I hated Christians. I hated them for the exact same reason that you're talking about.
yeah.
I mean, I was in high school. I hated it. I hated all of it because they were saying, you know, we found the way. And we are not only the way, we're the only way. And if you don't follow this particular thing, then you're screwed. And I was like, how stinking narrow-minded do you have to be to claim that you're the only way, right? So I was
Yeah.
I was adamantly against all of it. I hated all of it. But it kind of it led me down this journey of trying to poke holes in it, try to look at. I mean, I've read books by atheists that are refuting Christianity, whether it's Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins. Like I've read these different books, right? And where I'm at now, and what I've come away with is that from what I see as evidence, and again, using the term loosely, I'm not saying 100% guaranteed, absolute, there's no way around it. But from what I see of the evidence, it points towards that being true. And I don't think for me, there's not a lot of evidence for evolution pointing towards that being the meaning of life. There's not a lot of evidence for any of the other ones that I've looked into. But again, I'm open. I mean, I'm open to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be true, but the question is it? And if it is, then I need to align myself up with whatever the truth is, not the other way around. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I remember when I went to youth group in high school football, Jeff
Mhm.
Dittler was like got some of us into our little group.
I remember the
You
name
know,
sounds
Steve
familiar.
Crawford. Dittler, yeah. He played linebacker. It was like,
Okay.
then our little group was Crawford, Matthew Goldsworthy, Josh
Okay.
J, and me.
Okay.
And then they got us over and we were doing like it was I think Episcopalian or something. It's very like this talking in tongues, called Foursquare
Oh,
Church.
like
Like
Pentecostal.
and the end is nigh,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. It was
Yep.
wild. But it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
all the stuff I heard out of there was just like, even as a high schooler, I was just like, okay. Doesn't corroborate. It's just like saying whatever you want.
Yeah.
But they're just like, but that it's not about critical thinking, It's about they're selling like a feeling,
Yeah.
ecstasy.
See, and that's what
They're
I'm
selling
against.
ecstasy.
I hate that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
against that completely.
yeah,
I think it needs to be about critical thinking. I think it needs to be about rationality and being intelligent and looking into stuff, not just saying,
yeah,
"Oh, I'm gonna speak in tongues and do some weird gobbledygook stuff, and I'm spiritual." And well, is
yeah,
there?
yeah. Once
Do
you're
you care? You know?
disassociated from any kind of like reality feedback, you're just like,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Someone can just tell you to do whatever. I was
Right.
watching. Do you hear about this thing in the Bay Area, the Zizian cult?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's like someone, and it's funny because I'm like, oh man, I bet some of the people I knew at Cafe Gratitude hung out with these guys, but they're like a
Okay.
transgender cult that happened kind of randomly. But the guy was like a computer scientist, and
Okay.
and then, but he didn't really do anything. But then there's these multiple murders from people that are associated with him,
Hmm.
and but there was like it's just crazy. It's just crazy. But they were like,
Sounds like a good
but
movie.
part of the thing was like to be transgender, part of like because the guy was actually probably pretty smart. And so like when you're
Yeah.
smart, sometimes you can like construct really complicated realities that seem to make sense, right? But
Yeah.
his thing, he came from the rationalist school and then was, a computer scientist. So like a lot of these guys were actually fairly intelligent. And
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
became and then broke off with them, and then he developed some sort of philosophy where like the people who are transgender have a superior mind because they're able to corroborate their masculine and feminine in their mind.
Wow. They're
And
higher on
and
the
then this seems
evolutionary
like
chain.
yeah, and they're also vegans and yeah. And then once you do that, you're like, okay, it's like, what did they do? He like I guess his dad was a professor of computer science at like in Alaska, and then he became a computer science major, and then whatever started like having whatever weird thoughts he was having, and then bought a tugboat. This is the ratcheted tugboat, and then took it into San Francisco Harbor, where it got cited for like. You should look
Yeah.
it up. It's funny. It's
That
hilarious.
sounds like a
And
good movie, dude. I mean, that somebody's got to be making a
no, it
movie
wouldn't
out
get
of that.
made. Someone's yeah.
They got to. They do
Hollywood
that
wouldn't
with all
allow it.
the
You have to
cults.
go.
They always make cult
Yeah,
movies like that, like
yeah.
with Koresh and the Hail
You
Bop and
couldn't
all
do it
that
without
stuff.
being funny because this is just
Right.
inherently
It'd be a
funny. It's
comedy.
a funny.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, cool, man. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate you hanging out with me. That was a good conversation. Hope you had a good time.
Right on, man. I did. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, thanks. It's good hanging out with you, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, man.
All
All
right,
right.
man. Talk to you
Aloha.
later. All right, bye.
All right, later.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. Don't forget to tell all of your friends, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. For feedback, you can reach me at my email, which is whycan'twetalkaboutthat@proton.me. Thanks.